What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing today? Or tonight, I guess. I see we have a lively chat going on already. That's awesome. Um, so I see my man Wombat's got his work cut out for him tonight. I hope he's not working because looks like he's got a lot of work to do in here. Somebody apparently have already. Gosh, I didn't even start my show yet, and there's fights going on in chat. Anyways, I'm glad everybody's here though, and interested in kind of learning this case as I do, and all of us, together. I think that's awesome, and that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna ask everybody to keep an open mind as we go through this. Yolanda, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Wow, that is amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, all of you guys, for always supporting and being here and everything. So, yeah, I want everybody to keep an open mind. We're going to start off. I see people already. Do you know the case files? Yes, yes, yes. It's not hard. I've seen the case files. No, I'm not an expert on this case. That's what we do here in true crime is we learn cases. There's going to be probably a mixture within the chat of people that probably have been following this thing, every detail and every character, every name and tweet and comment on Facebook, to those that literally are just hearing it for the first time tonight. So either way, the rabbit hole on this is probably just as big, if not bigger, than the Watts case. I've been looking at it for, I don't know, at least a few months. I mean, I've heard about it. I think everybody's heard about it. This is a 7-year-old case. Everybody's heard about it. It's one that I wasn't quite sure if I was going to even tackle because it's really sad on every side. Pat, yes, I have read the case file. Now, do I memorize every single thing on every one of them? Absolutely not. Nor would the attorney general or the DA, or anybody for that matter, wouldn't know every single detail in it. So we're going to go over it together. I'm going to learn from you guys. Again, I am even keeping an open mind to this. I had a best friend, my very best friend, my senior year of high school, committed suicide with a gun. And it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. I would have never known. I was with him. He dropped me off at my house maybe a half hour before it happened. He went home and it happened. And no, I would have never guessed it. So I have kept an open mind. I'm going to continue to do that. But I've seen, obviously, it's built up some stuff lately and kind of pushed it to the front here. And I've thought real hard over the past 24 hours how to tackle this. And thank you, Pepperly. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support so much. You have no idea. And CDT's here. We got celebrity here. What's up, Kelly? So yeah, I want to keep an open mind on this, not go into attack. Did you read this or do you know that? Do you know this? Do you know that? There's a reason after 7 years that this case is still, this case has gone the gauntlet of 48 hours, every huge YouTuber from Kendall Ray, John Lorden, Stephanie Harlow, and many, many, many more. And there's a reason for it. So what tonight's going to do is I'm going to come in and just kind of let's introduce ourselves. And I think, how do you do that? How do people first learn about a case? You learn through the media, through whether that's social media, mass media, and different things. So I had to think to myself. I sat down. Thank you, DA. Thank you. I sat down. I started typing up last night. A little framework of what to do, what I'm going to say. A timeline, all this stuff. And the more I thought about it, I just deleted it. I said, I don't want to do that. That's not my style. I want to go in being unbiased. This case is obviously being talked about. A lot of people here I'm seeing in the chat tonight come from different, followers, and that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. They come from different followers and or different channels that they follow, and they're hearing one narrative. And I'll be honest, that is definitely one of the reasons that I felt we had to start talking about it from an unbiased and totally objective view, because not only for justice for Christian, because I would hope at least that even those that are getting a you know feel that they're being wrongly accused, these were friends, supposedly best friends of, and the girlfriend of Christian. So I would think they want justice too. And I'll be honest, what I've been hearing has made me question some things of, character wise. I'm just being totally honest. I could be wrong though. But yeah, it was some of the comments that I've heard and that have been sent to me. I just said, all right, let's try this, start this from the beginning and answer why people are so interested in this case. Louis, self-harm is such an important issue. Yes, Pat, I read the case files. I don't know how many times I even posted a link to it in case anybody wants the case files. There's the case files. Everybody can read those. They're there. Good luck with the files though, taking them off that website because it's garbage. It doesn't let you open it. It's horrible. But yes, you can find them there. But I believe this is a cover up in this case, and nobody convinced me otherwise yet. It's a good comment, and I agree. Self harm is huge. And like I said, my best friend killed himself my senior year of high school. So I'm very very sensitive to this, and that's why I did not even know if I wanted to cover it. But I think it's important to show people how you could watch Kate, and that's awesome. I mean, hey, if you want to send me, if you have something else that's different, or like something with that I'm missing, as you see I'm going over, I hope you give me a chance at least here to show you guys that I am going to be honest about the questions I have, but I'm also going to be honest and try to cover it and show why there are questions 7 years later. We got to get to that point before we just jump down everyone's throat and say, you're wrong for having that opinion. Let's go back to how we got there. Maybe it's the media's fault. Maybe it is. I don't know. But that's how we got to get there and figure out why there's questions, what those questions are. And then after that, as we go through, and this is not going to be done in one night, obviously, but as we go through, we are going to be able to then pick apart those narratives that were put out there, the questions that are put out there that have made this such a compelling case. And yeah, so just like I said, if anyone has anything and they truly want that truth and all that to get out there, Kate, please, I'm open. Send it. I'll share what you sent. I'll share it like I am here, the case files, the link to it, to what I have out there. I want everybody to have everything. Delin, did you get my urgent email? I don't think so, because I didn't see anything urgent. So if you did something, hopefully it has nothing to do with tonight's live. So, yeah. So back to what I want to do. Basically, here's the thing. What I don't like is about what we see a lot in this community, and I'm seeing at least in my short time doing this and diving in. So I guess the best way I could illustrate is a story, I guess. A little story about my grandfather. Again, as if anyone hasn't noticed, yes, I talk a lot about my grandfather because he's basically raised me, and probably the only true man I've ever met in my life. But I was about 12 or 13 years old, sitting on his barber chair, and I was reading the New York Post, sports section, of course. I was 12 or 13. So all I cared about was baseball, football and all that stuff. So I'm reading the sports section. He comes by and he asks me, "What are you reading?" And I told him whatever article it was I was reading. And he said, "No." And he got a little stern. He said, "No, I asked you what you're reading." And Dave is telling me to read my super chat. Sorry, Dave. What did I miss? What did I miss? Dave, Wombat, thank you, man. Appreciate you. My man. I watched the documentary and came to a conclusion. Stop yelling at me, people, please. You're right, Dave. They knew. Everyone needs to stop yelling. I know there's a lot of feelings in this. And I'll be honest, I've watched a lot of the last night. I wish I didn't do it, but I went and I looked at a lot of the social media stuff. I will concede right away that there are some really, really, let's just say real characters in this case on both sides. And it's turned into a real mess that I wouldn't be, you know, quite proud of myself, but I'm not one to judge because I didn't lose somebody in a case like this where they feel there's questions and the other side feels that they're being wrongfully accused. And, there's a lot of feelings there that, none of us, I don't think, have the right to judge, unless we're there and we're in their shoes. So, but back to my story. I'm reading the paper, and he asked me what I'm reading. And I said I'm reading. Told him the article I was reading. He said, "No, what are you reading?" So I looked at him like, "What are you talking about, Gramp?" I said, "I'm reading the New York Times." And he goes, "Yeah, but what are you actually reading?" And I said, I'm thinking in my head at 13, I think maybe 12 or 13, I'm going, "The heck is he getting at?" And so I go, and I looked at the newspaper to make sure it was New York Post. I go, "I'm reading the New York Post." And he got mad. He snatched the paper out of my hands and he gave me a lesson I've never forgot. He goes, "If you don't know what you're reading, you're better off not reading anything at all." I'm like, "Gramp, I'm reading the sports page. What do you want me to tell you I'm reading?" "I'm reading an article about," I don't know if it was the Yankees or whatever it was at the time. And he started to tell me about the biases in media. And obviously today that extends to social media, YouTube, all of it. And he says, "You need to know what you're reading." He goes, "I read everything." He pointed to his kitchen table where he was one of those people that got every newspaper, every news magazine. I mean, if you called his house and tried to sell him anything, he was going to buy it. He couldn't say no. He's the most well-read person I've ever met in my life. So he goes, "I read all of it." He goes, "But before you read it, it's more dangerous not to know." He goes, "For example, New York Post is a right-leaning newspaper. New York Times is left-leaning. Washington Post," and he went down the list of the magazines, different publications, what their leanings are, whether they're right, left, liberal, conservative, what their agendas are. And he explained to me that if you don't know going in, you're liable to be brainwashed because they all have an agenda. And he goes, "It's okay. People have agendas. People believe different things, and that's not a problem to have it. The problem becomes if you don't know what that agenda is ahead of time, they're liable to brainwash you into believing that." Um, so I say that, and I hope everybody, whether you like me or dislike me, and I get it, not everyone's going to like me. You might even hate me. My life, I've always been kind of a love them or hate them character, man. I get it. But I hope you at least respect the fact that I'm going to try my hardest to start this off by just showing where we started. I agree, Francisco. Newsday is a good newspaper. But again, you got to know where they kind of lead. Newsday seems to be a little more fair, but a little left to center. But that's all right. I like them. But yeah, so just don't get brainwashed. Don't get bullied into having people tell you. I'm open to questions. I hope people aren't going to sit here and bully because of what they already think of the case or whatever that is. Be open. And tonight, I get it. Some of you that are in here that know the case and have been following it very closely, you're going to be sitting here yelling at me and telling me, "You're not talking about the facts. That's not true. This isn't true." So I'm going to be very, very honest and transparent as I do this. There's a reason to what I'm doing. I want to show why there's questions 7 years later, how it got here, what the narrative of the mainstream media has been. And then, of course, as we delve into this, we're going to start to pick it apart. I'm not going to go in with 100%, this is what I believe, this is this. I believe there's questionable things on every side of this. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. There's questionable things on every side of this. The biggest part that got me going, though, I will be honest, I always told you, is I'm not going to lie. Is yes, I feel that there's been some, again, bullying going on. And let me say this, us New Yorkers, we get a bad rap. We do. And I kind of rip on us New Yorkers sometimes too. But, excuse me. One thing about us is there's a reason, there's a saying that if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Because one thing about us is we can spot a scam a mile away. We could spot a scam artist a mile away. There isn't a scam or a con or an agenda that you can throw at us here in New York, whether it's Manhattan, the boroughs, Yonkers, Albany, Westchester County, Utica, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo. It don't matter where you go in the entire state. It's a mentality in New York. And we have a mentality, and we're not going to be scammed. We see people a mile away. We can see any agenda. We've been through everything, whether it's, the 80s, watching the South Bronx quite literally burn in the 80s, watching the crack epidemic take over our city and destroy it and be ripped on, to coming back during the late 90s and 2000s, to 2001 with terrorist attack, the previous terrorist bombing at the Trade Center. We've done it all. We shake it off, and we don't even look the other way. It's just another day. So by that, I mean, you got to come pretty strong if you're going to rattle our nerves. Like Life Interrupted. There we go. I love that. What does this have to do with anything? It's laying the foundation, Life Interrupted, as to what I'm doing. So you might want to go back and watch it and read it and figure it out for yourself. Or you could just cluck in the chat. Everybody let them cluck away. Because clearly you're not keeping an open mind if you're just yelling and screaming. And that's all good. Do what you got to do. But you're only going to prove my point further by acting that way. So what we're going to do is just start off as if we're all dumb and never heard of this case. What did the media say? How did it get reported? And that's where we're going to go. So before everybody starts yelling and screaming that that's not right, this isn't right, I understand. I get it. We're going to get to all that. We have a lot of time, and this case has been 7 years. There's a million characters involved. There's a lot of things that are involved in it. I understand that. I'm not dumb to this. Trust me. But you got to start at the beginning. And I don't care about text messages about who was who. We got to focus on that day. What happened that day is what we want to get through. And why are there so many questions? One thing I do have, I want to be honest, a preconceived notion, and kind of like the meme, I want to say, prove me wrong, and I'm open to being proved wrong 100%. But is that I absolutely believe something else happened that day. Maybe he did kill himself still, but something else, and I think we'll go through it all. And if you back the blue, then you would back the police chief and Arrington and so on. But we'll get into those details as we get further into this. I don't want to get too much into the rabbit hole right now. But the bottom line is something at that scene was altered. Why was it? I don't know. It could have been as simple as people freaking out or nervous, or it was an accident or something along those lines. That could have been the case for sure. I don't know. But I think all evidence and unbiased evidence, even including comments from the authorities, have said that it was a botched investigation. So there's a reason why we're all here and we're all discussing it and we're all so emotional. But I'm going to ask to try to take some of that emotion away and let's just follow how we got there, and then we can get to that point and we'll kind of almost have a trial. And trust me, a trial doesn't happen in a 2-hour live. We're just gonna start off, chill out, have some fun here, read it over, and then we'll have a good discussion. So yeah, I guess we're gonna, I don't know what else to say other than let's get to it. I guess that was my little intro thing. I hope everybody thought that was pretty cool. All that glitters. She's back. And she changed her picture. Still a beautiful picture, but I missed the little butterflies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I agree, Melissa. Let's try to figure out the truth, no matter what that truth may be. That's where I am. That's what I believe. Let's find it out. But you got to go back to the beginning to kind of figure out why we got here, why so many people are so invested emotionally in this. But it seems that right now what I'm seeing is everybody's on another side. And I get a little bit of it because, like, I think it was Kate or one of them said a minute ago, that this the other narrative has been largely one-sided so far, that this was, a cover-up, a murder. And, for 7 years now, all the coverage I can find, and as I'm looking through this, I go, how do I tell this? Like I said, I started off trying to write up my own stuff. And I said, no, I just want this to be kind of organic and to see why those questions are there. So I said, all right, I'm going to start with a media, a news source, figure out what is it that's where people learn their information. So what is it that got people to think this way? And of course we could go in, I said I could show some huge YouTubers videos, or I can talk about their narrative, but then of course they do have their biases as well. And, that's going to bring up some feelings as well too. So I said, I'm going to just try to find a mainstream, although this is not really ideal for me, but I'm going to try to find a mainstream news article or some sort of story that we can kind of delve into, see what their take was. I get it. There's going to be people in this chat that are flipping out saying that part's wrong, this part's wrong, that's been proven, check the case file, do this. We get it. The point is, let's see why what those questions are that the media or whatever it is created. Why we're also, we got to come to an understanding first. Like my grandfather said, you got to understand how people, if you truly believe people are brainwashed, and if in the end, when we finish going through all this without yelling and screaming at people and already coming in with a preconceived notion as to what happened, then when we're done with this, whether it takes a week, 2 weeks, or I don't care how long it takes, your side's going to be the one that wins ultimately. So even if you believe I have a notion, or I think it was murder or whatever, which isn't the case, by the way, but even if you believe that, then I'm going to lose this argument by the time we wrap this up, no matter how long it takes. So some of the comments are funny. I ask you again to thank you, DA. I appreciate it. I appreciate your support. Yeah, so let's go in and just kind of, I think one of the ones, and this is what I picked, and people can disagree or agree or disagree or whatever. But I mean, if we all sat here arguing over which is the most unbiased or biased media outlet, we could probably have a whole year's worth of arguments over that too. So we're never going to really agree. So I chose to just go with something that most people have probably seen. Not going to play the video because I don't know if I even can. But we'll read through the article and kind of get a narrative of I'm not going to go through pinpoint and everything, but we'll get a narrative of how the story was told from 48 hours. And I get it. A lot of people don't necessarily agree with 48 hours and their narrative. I trust me, I already get that. But that is how this narrative got out there, and the one that I assume the other side is looking now to make right. They want to make it better. So we got to start by seeing what they said. And that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to try to do. Give me just a second. I just have to send a link to somebody, not for the show, but unrelated. Okay. All right, so we're going to go over this. And once again, I get it. I'm just going off of this. And I did this purposely because I'm only going to qualify this one more time. I sound like a broken record to myself even right now. But I'm doing this again to try to dumb it down for myself and everyone else to see how this has become such a national story, and how if Dylan and Whitley, who we know are the girlfriend and his best friend, who were there that day, have gotten in this position of everybody blaming them of murder, and what the media has done. And then we can, in the future, tonight we're just laying it out there how it happened and how we got here. And then we're going to go through and we're going to talk the specifics of the case file and what really happened, what each side has happened, what the independent reports have said, what the police chief said, what the new police chief said, what the DAs have said, what the whole story of, who's who, and we'll get into all of that. I promise you. But now I want to know how we got to here and how it ended up getting to this point. So I hope that makes sense, everybody. If it doesn't, sorry. That's the way I'm going to go. So I apologize if I'm not looking at chat, but I'm going to read this and almost basically verbatim. We're just going to go through and see how we got here and what happened. So this is Christian Andreacchio. Just before I even read it, Christian was a 21-year-old kid. He, young man. Mississippi. He was, by all accounts, a great worker on this. Worked on a tugboat. All of his coworkers, bosses, and that have said he was on his way to possibly being the youngest captain. He was making great money, great career. He loved his job. And ultimately, long story short, on February 26th, he had his best friend come and get him. He had some issues with his girlfriend. Some say he wanted to, there's differences as to whether he was going there to kick her out, take his car. But ultimately, what we do know is that he was the one working. He had taken her in. She lived for a short time with his parents. His parents didn't like her. They didn't get along. There's differing accounts as to why. Ultimately, they told her she had to leave. Christian didn't like that either, so he left too. And they went and got an apartment, and he was the only one working. So he was paying the bills, got her a BMW. He had a Jeep, paying for the party and all that stuff. And he was partying too. Typical young 21-year-old kid, guy who had a good job, and he was doing his thing. And that's kind of how it lays. And he came home, and that morning, his friend Dylan drove all the way out down to Louisiana to pick him up. He got off his boat, and he was supposed to have been back by about 5:30, apparently. By the time they get all the way back to Meridian, Mississippi, their hometown, to do this, apparently it was roughly around, and we're going to dive into exact times and all that stuff at another time, but roughly around 11:30 or so, we'll say. And then the events get murky. We don't know what happened exactly. We do know where Dylan went. We know some things, but ultimately, a 911 call happened, and they reported that Christian was found in the bathroom with a gunshot wound to his head, and reported that it was a suicide. Police came, everybody came, and they did. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. If I missed anybody else's, I'm so sorry. Nope, you haven't missed much. Just me, as many will say, just me blabbing, but laying it down. But we're getting into the case a little bit now, Michelle. So yeah, and they wrapped it up in about 45 minutes. So we got another kind of Watts case here. No matter what actually happened, that's one of the reasons why there's so many questions. And I got to believe, I don't know what chat feels like. I don't know Dylan or any of these people, Dylan or Whitley for that matter, but I got to believe if they were truly, that after 7 years of all these allegations, that they would agree with me that 45-minute investigation was probably what caused them so much headache. It was a botched investigation. Because if they didn't do anything and this was absolutely a suicide, then a proper investigation would have cleared them that day, and there would have never even been any questions. So they wrapped it up in 45 minutes and said it was a suicide. So that's unfortunate. So let's see what 48 hours had to say, and this way we can get an idea of where they swung, how they put the story out there, and what why we kind of see why they feel that way. And then we'll dig, as we go on with this, we'll dig deeper into their details. And so Kate says they did a thorough investigation, 11 different agencies. They didn't do a thorough investigation that day. There's no doubt about that one. Okay, there's no doubt. 45 minutes, you don't do a thorough investigation, especially when you got people there. But I'm not gonna go off target and argue yet. But they didn't do a thorough investigation, and I would think if those two did not do anything wrong, it was 100% as stated, and it was a suicide, then I know me, if I'm in their position, I'd be pissed off at the police, because whatever investigation they didn't clear me, and 7 years later there's still all this stuff. So you can't have it both ways. They did a perfect investigation, but yet my name's still not cleared, and it's not just some guy Larry with 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, but massive YouTubers, massive mainstream media, and investigators, authorities, even all having differing views as to what happened, tells me that if I was in Dylan's position, I'd be pretty upset at that investigation, because it's causing me a lot of pain. And that's just the truth of the matter. So you can't have it both ways. They didn't do a good investigation. And, so Jeanette says 45 minutes is long enough to determine he committed suicide. Well, as we get into the case, we'll find out. We'll find out if it was enough time to investigate, because there's circumstances in every case, and there's still some very outstanding questions of argument, that of fact that can be raised, and there's a reason why they are being raised. So if they are in fact answered in that 45 plus minutes or whatever, then there should be no problem. Again, I am being unbiased here. I'm not saying anything bad did happen. What I'm saying is, you guys yelling just basically shut up. You're not helping the cause if you're looking to help out Dylan Whitley, because you're not getting a more unbiased person to cover this than me. I'm telling you, I 100% don't know what happened there. I'm not just saying that. I really don't know what happened there. And if they absolutely did nothing, then they should be very mad, because just because they're not there, there was warrants issued. That right there is a story. So they've been, if that's the case, they've been absolutely wronged by not only Ray or whoever else in this case, but mostly by the authorities. So leaving certain things out there. So we're going to get into all that, but I just want you to kind of take a deep breath, please, and let's get into how we got to this point. Yeah, Corey B, they are very mad. A lot of people are mad, and I don't understand it. We need to try to get to the point of not bashing anyone, because again, I look at it from, I don't know. I'm not Dylan, so I can't tell you what he's thinking, but I tried to put myself in his shoes as someone that has lost my best friend to suicide. And I'm thinking he's got to be upset because he doesn't want to see his friend or even his mom, even if that mom is not being fair to him. It would be tough if I'm trying. I'm not him, so I can't really say. But I would be upset even if I was taking, almost like I would take one for the team. Like, I get it. She's upset. She's mad, blah, blah, blah. Then again, it has been 7 years, so I've tried to be a little understanding that maybe he's just had enough. But I just put myself in his shoes. I don't think he would, at least I wouldn't in those shoes, allow anyone to talk bad about my friend, my best friend that killed himself, or even his family, even if that family, kind of like, when two brothers, me and my brother grew up, fighting all the time. And, we beat the crap out of each other. But God forbid somebody else come in and said something bad about my brother. No, it's not going to happen. I'm going to fight for him like hell. Like, you could, I can attack him, but you can't. And I kind of feel like that's how I would be, at least in the position. I'd be like, look, she can attack me, she could beat me, she could punch me, but don't you dare. And me and her can fight each other, but don't you dare go attack her. That's my best friend's mom, and yeah, she's wrong, I feel, but we're gonna hash this out. That's just me, though. I'm just wondering how it got here, and that's what we're gonna go through. So I'm actually not even gonna look at chat as I read through this, because I want people to maybe not even chat and focus on, what is Seth mad about? Somebody get rid of Seth. I don't even care anymore. I mean, this is just too much. Good Lord. So, yeah, I'm not even gonna look at chat. Anyways, so Christian Andreacchio was a 21-year-old man on track to being, this is 48 hours, mind you, this is not Larry talking, was a young man on track to being one of the youngest towboat captains on the Mississippi River when he died of a single gunshot wound to the head. His parents say he was murdered, but law enforcement says it was suicide. Andreacchio's live-in girlfriend, Whitley Goodman, and friend Dylan Swearingen say they discovered him in the bathroom of his apartment in Meridian, Mississippi. This was on February 26, 2014. Police quickly ruled out foul play, and the death was ruled a suicide despite suspicious clues. There was little blood splatter, and there were no fingerprints found on the gun. I believe 100% he was murdered, Andreacchio's mother, Ray, tells 48 Hours correspondent Van Sant. Determined to find out what happened to Christian, the Andreacchios hired a team of investigators and experts to look at the evidence. They came up with a different conclusion: murder. Did your son Dylan shoot Christian? Van Sant asked Swearingen's mother, Pam. Absolutely not. On a very bad day, my son lost his best friend, she said. Goodman's mother, Christy Chatterton, says, I just want them to know that she did not kill him. A grand jury heard the case in 2017 and chose not to indict Goodman and Swearingen in Andreacchio's death. But 48 Hours has learned jurors did not hear all of the evidence. So in February, they go on here to, so we could see, And I could see people from one side being upset. I'm looking at their article. It's clear from the first little introduction that they definitely are going in with a slant to the side of this being a cover up and this being a case with a lot of unanswered questions. So I don't know who's timing out or blocking people, but I'm getting a ton of messages. Come on, guys. I don't want to deal with this tonight. If unless somebody's literally bullying someone or calling them names, please don't block or time out anybody. There's emotions here. It'll all wash out in the end. I promise you that. And by the time we work through it, maybe, just maybe, they'll listen a little bit and see that maybe I come to a different conclusion than they might think that I'm going. Who knows? So, and if somebody is bullying or whatever, and they're like using foul language, we don't do that here. So, yeah, we just don't. We don't bully or swear or stuff like that. So, I mean, if you can keep it to that, you could disagree. You can point out evidence as you go along to dispute things. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. I don't want people blocked or anything for that type of thing. Again, I'm not going to engage in that because, again, that's going to be for another day, as we will have arguments like that and talk about evidence and talk about what actually is what it is, and some of these narratives that these people are putting out there and what isn't. For example, just in that beginning thing, I mean, no fingerprints found on a gun. That jumps out to me as somebody that's dealt with investigations and things in the past. Is it true? Number one. And again, I'm not going to go into telling you what I've already seen. We're going to get to that at some point, but I'm just giving you an idea how we're going to do this. Is that true? If that's true, that's pretty big. There should absolutely be at least Christian's got, of course, Christian's fingerprints on the gun. We know, at least by, as we get into this and we see Dylan's statement, we know that Dylan says he took the gun from Christian at some point that day and hit it for at least a little bit and then gave it back to him. So we would think his fingerprints should be on the gun somewhere. But they're saying in their article, again, Larry's not saying it, they're saying it in 48 hours, that there was no fingerprints on the gun. So again, I'm not making a statement of fact. I'm saying this is how we're getting here. And again, maybe you're late to the show, what's going on now, but I have learned from that, but everyone hasn't. And we're going to go back to the beginning and see how we got to the point of all this people yelling at each other. And if everyone wants to yell at each other, then fine, nothing will ever get accomplished. But you got to realize how you got to know how you got to a point before you can fix it. So let's go on. So February 26th, 2014, Ray Andreacchio. I can't believe this is happening to our family. I think now this was the reason I'm reading this, and it may sound a little weird, is because this is basically a script it was a video, it was a program, as you all know, 48 hours. I'm reading it out because I'm not sure if I can actually play it, although I'm pretty positive I can with fair use, but just in case. So I can't believe this is happening to our family. I think everybody was just kind of in shock. This is something, that happens to other people. It doesn't happen to you. From their lakeside home just outside Meridian, Mississippi, Ray and Todd Andreacchio are haunted by the death of their 21-year-old son, Christian, in 2014. Thank you so much, Stay for love, 21. I appreciate it. Is there a full moon tonight? LOL. Look at that. Prayers for all families involved. Room for you later. Thank you. It is. It's a tough. That's why I'm trying to tell people not to time people out and different things. Because I get it. There's people and I guess I have to prove myself again on a case that, once again, I am not coming in with picking a side. I don't pick a side. I want to touch on this case and come almost like a prosecution should do. We're going to find out how we got here. That's what we're starting tonight. Let people get familiar with the case. And then as we go along this path, we're going to then get into different things that where we can start chip away at the narrative, whether that leads us to whatever we want it to lead us to the truth, and see how many questions have been answered and how they can be answered. We got to know how we got here and how everybody got so divided. Thank you, Dina. Thank you so much. And then, we'll take it from there, and then we'll kind of come to a conclusion, and maybe we'll have a little mock jury, see what we think happened, because clearly it's not going away. And yeah, we're going to try to get some answers here. So Todd Andreacchio says, a lot of days I look out there and, expect to see him out there with the jet ski floating about. But, every day you get caught with memories. Christian grew up on Dalewood Shore Lake, where he fell in love with the water and dreamed of becoming a towboat captain on the Mississippi River. Todd says, his father says, he was on his way to being a really good man, and I think he would have made a good father, a good husband. Peter Van Sant asks, it's tough to talk about this, isn't it? Todd says, yep, I miss him every day. So they go on talking. I'm not going to go through their conversation unless somebody has something they want to really see, but I'm going to go through the narrative of what they sold here. So for now, there are two unanswered questions at the heart of this case. Why would a young man with so much to live for take his own life? Or perhaps more importantly, did someone take Christian's life from him? So the nerve's been set. I will agree with everyone that 48 hours even, which is probably the most unbiased I think that I can find, is definitely building a narrative of, whether this is suicide or homicide. I mean, granted, it was already built up there before they ever did this program, but that's certainly where they're coming in. So Peter Van Sant asked Todd, his father, your son's death, suicide or homicide? Todd says homicide. His mother, Ray, says it's definitely a homicide. But Lauderdale County District Attorney Cassie Coleman, who took over the case in 2018, says the evidence points in another direction. So now the DA, Cassie Coleman. Now, Cassie Coleman became the DA. She was, I believe, appointed at one point, that she won her election. And that's a whole nother bag of worms, I guess, to open up. Is, this is a woman that, and me knowing the political realm, they're absolutely right. But you know what? In small town politics, it happens. So a woman that came from, she lived in Georgia and was a resident of Georgia, ran for DA. This is a very deep red Republican county. All right. Deep red. Democrat basically doesn't have a shot. The Andreacchio family backed a Democrat in this. Now, this is irrelevant of what happened that day. I'm not talking about this for the case. I just like to mention this because I found this interesting as someone that comes from politics. That they nearly beat her with a Democrat on the ballot in that election, which was amazing to me because for all intents and purposes, she should have taken 75. A dead fish could have took 75% of the vote as a Republican in that county. By all analytics, and I've looked at their voter registrations, their past turnout data, and all of that, and it was just amazing to me. No matter what side, it just shows how split that this issue has made that area. So it's definitely divided families for sure. So yeah, we'll go back now. Cassie Coleman, she is the DA still. She says, well, at this point, there's been further investigation by multiple agencies that have determined it to be a suicide. At issue are the events of February 26th, 2014. So the mother says, I had talked to Christian that morning. He was on the boat. Everything was fine. Christian was a few days into what's called a hitch. It's a 30-day work trip on the Mississippi River where he was a first mate on a towboat. Ray called him about getting tickets for a Rihanna concert. So Ray says, and he said, well, let me check the date to see. He said, I got to go. I'll call you back later. Love you. And got off the phone. Just hours later, they were told that Christian was found dead in his apartment, which he shared with his girlfriend, Whitley Goodman. So Todd says, his father says, and I was like, no, I don't think so. Christian's at work. He's not even in town. A Meridian police detective broke the horrible news to them in person. Ray says, and he said, well, this is his driver's license. And when we saw his driver's license, it became a little bit more real. But suicide, nothing made sense to Ray and Todd. Todd says he's never had any kind of mental problems, any kind of depression. So we see a picture here of Christian and Whitley. Professionally, at the age of 21, Christian's life couldn't have been better. And on the personal side, he adored Whitley, who had dropped out of high school and wanted to become a hair and makeup artist. Christy Chatterton, who is Whitley's mother, says they made each other happy. He was crazy about her. And then she goes on to say she's very funny, very creative and adventurous. Peter Van Sant asks, she's a young woman that Christian Andreacchio fell in love with. She says she is. Whitney even moved in with the Andreacchios, but after a few weeks, Ray says Whitley became jealous, defacing a picture of Christian and his girlfriend. That's what Ray has been saying all along. She apparently, I don't know, knocked out, scratched out, or punctured out a picture of his girlfriend, and that's why she told them to leave. True or not, that's one-sided. So again, we have to, at this point, we have to take things with a grain of salt. That's what happened. And then, so Ray says, I figured that she stabbed the faces out and then she brought the picture to me and gave it back to me. And Peter asks, what did you think, Todd? Todd says, I thought she was a nut. The Andreacchios asked Whitley to move out. So Ray says, and so, his kind of attitude was, well, if she can't be here, then I can't be here. Christian and Whitley moved into an apartment, which Christian paid for. So far, I mean, those are slants, but so far those are accurate. Pretty accurate statements. And, we don't know if she actually did that to the picture, but I don't see why. And a young kid, I can see that happening. I think we're all get at that age jealous and stuff over our girlfriends and boyfriends and different things. I mean, who hasn't seen a toxic relationship in that age? So I kind of don't give too much weight to any of that stuff. It's really irrelevant for the most part to this, in my mind. So Christian and Whitley moved into that apartment. So Ray says, I felt that she was using him for money. He was providing her with a place to stay, with a car, clothes, makeup, whatever. Keep in mind, this is Christian's mother. So, yes, again, we're here on one side here so far. Whitley's mom saw problems too, especially when Christian was on the towboat. So Whitley's mom says she would have to stay on the phone with him at night so he can keep up with where she was and what she was doing. Peter Van Sant says, you mean like an hour after hour? She says, like hours and hours and hours every night. I didn't know how unhealthy the relationship had become. So, her mother's now saying that Christian was very jealous too. Again, it doesn't surprise me. And he was making her stay on the phone, wanted to know where she was, suspected her of cheating, things like that. But none of this seemed to add up to suicide for the Andreacchios. Todd says, so for him to take his life over somebody he'd been dating for 6 months, I don't think so. No. That's another point that is interesting to me, is they're only together for 6 months. That could be taken into account too, but we don't really know too much off that, but it's something to keep in the back of our minds. On the night of Christian's death, Ray needed answers. She called her brother, Chris Thompson. And again, this is something that, as a side note for me, why I've started covering this a little bit. I heard some really disparaging comments about Chris Thompson too recently. And it just didn't sit well with me. It showed a lack of character, and I just know I would never allow that. So she called her brother, Chris Thompson, and asked that he drive over to the Meridian Police Department. That's where Christian's friend, Dylan Swearingen, who made the 911 call, was being questioned along with Whitley. Ray says, and I told him to be sure that Whitley didn't have Christian's phone. At first, Whitley denied having it, but eventually turned it over to police. Chris Thompson says, to me, that was a big red flag right off the bat. Peter asks or says, so she had lied initially about not knowing where Christian's phone was. And Ray says, right. It's very suspicious because why would you do that? So now the DA, Cassie Coleman, says, my personal opinion is that she did not want that phone to get in the hands of law enforcement because there were a lot of sexually oriented photographs and messages in that phone. So now we have the DA. We can't really debate whether or not she was hiding the phone and didn't want to give the phone over. The DA, Cassie Coleman, who by all accounts, the Andreacchios are on a vendetta against. Don't like. There's no reason for her to come out and say it. So she's basically conceded that actually did happen. She tried to keep the phone until the police said, we're not leaving here until you hand over the phone. She goes right into her purse and takes the phone out and hands it over. So she was trying to lied about having the phone. So that's pretty much come out and been conceded by even the district attorney, Cassie Coleman. That did in fact happen. I agree. That is, so far, as we're getting there, these are the questions that got us to where we are here. And that's why I'm pointing them out. Not because I'm saying that they mean that they did anything. I'm saying, how did we get to where we are now in making questions and having this be such a debated case? So let's go on. The Andreacchios were stunned to learn the investigation at the scene only lasted 45 minutes. So Peter says, and the job they did in this investigation, how would you describe it? Todd says, piss poor. But that same investigation did turn up something that the Andreacchios hoped would be a game changer. So Peter says both Dylan and Whitley are checked for gunshot residue, GSR otherwise. What do they find? Todd says gunshot residue. Peter says on both their hands. Todd says both their hands. Peter says, and what does that suggest to you? Todd says they were in the room when the gun was fired. I saw early in this chat, somebody had mentioned there was no gunshot residue. It was only on this one, that one. And this was the same person that told me to read the case files. I have. There was gunshot residue on them. Period. We'll get to that another time if you really want to. I'm not going to get bogged down in one person's comment. And again, I don't know who said it. I don't remember, but maybe this person just didn't know, but or whatever. Or maybe it was a troll. I don't know. But I just want to point out that somebody was saying that. Simply not true. It is true. So we can't just make up facts and forget it. We got to know why we're here. And again, it doesn't mean I think anything happened, but that's another fact that we're getting to as to why we're here and why people question, did he really do this? How do you get gunshot residue? As we get into the case, and you're going to hear in this, she has a valid, she believes, they believe, whatever, but we'll get into that. Excuse, I guess, or whatever. I don't want to say, I'm trying so hard not to pick my words because I want this to be unbiased. So yeah, they do end up with explaining that, and we'll get to that. But let me see somebody facts. So empty nester facts based on 42 are not necessarily facts. I've already said that the 48 hours episode clearly has a slant. As I've been reading it, I don't know if you've been here, but as I've been reading it, I'm pointing out they do. And I'm pointing out where they have that slant. But what I'm showing is whether we like it or not, we absolutely have to know how we got here and why the case is so blown up and why there's so many questions to these people. Because if they are innocent of this, it really is a travesty that spending 7 years being told you killed your boyfriend and your best friend. Let's face it. Again, I had a best friend kill himself in high school. If I was blamed for that, holy cow. So we got to get there. And 48 hours, fortunate or unfortunate, however you look at it, is a massive mainstream media, and they reported on it, and that's what kind of builds that narrative. So no, I'm not necessarily saying facts, but there are facts within it, like there are with any story, but you got to pick and choose. And I'm trying to be very unbiased as I point out where some things are facts, some things aren't. There's a narrative, there's a spin. You got to know what they're doing. And yeah, so that's where that is. Thank you so much, Without Borders, for becoming a member. Welcome. Appreciate it. Bear with me as we work through this landmine of a case, which I'm seeing has as much, if not more, vigor from both sides than the Watts case. So we're going to keep doing it and move on. So, all right. What happened to Christian? Ray Andreacchio. Anyone that just got here, that's Christian's mother. Nobody wants to think that their child was at a point in their life where they took their own life. I mean, that's just human nature. But we had someone in the community who had killed himself, and that really bothered Christian. And he several times told me, Mom, if anybody ever says I killed myself, you come looking, because I wouldn't do that. And I'm going to stop there and put my little thing in. Again, that's coming from his mother. We don't know if he ever really said that. And I also know that many people say that when they're feeling good, but you don't know what could happen. People certainly have, every single day in this country, do make last minute decisions that they don't realize are permanent ones and not they're a temporary or a long-term fix, I guess, or whatever, however the saying goes, to a short-term problem, and they can't really take it back. So again, but the mom says that, and you got to remember her son did pass away, so it's going to be, I'm just pointing out again, because I'm trying to be fair without anybody yelling at me. That is his mother saying it, and we don't know if that's true or not. Rachel, thank you so much. Lake George, I love Lake George. I used to go there every summer. The law firm I worked for had I don't know if you ever seen it, but we used to have a yacht up there called Defense Res, and we used to go up there every summer and just literally camp out on Lake George and drop the frickin' anchor and party. Well, I won't go into all of our partying back then, but yeah, when I was early 20s, we would do some partying out there on the lake for days, and it's a great time. Lake George is absolutely beautiful. And thank you, Still Motivated Wolf. I appreciate that. Appreciate you becoming a member. And yeah, so let's see here. It's already over an hour. Let me see if I can try to get through this at least. And that's what I wanted to do tonight, again, is just lay the foundation to how we got here. And then we're going to get into the nitty gritty. And that's going to be tough, because I know people are going to come. And I'm trying tonight at least to lay it down, where I hope Kate's here. Some others, Jem's here. I know they're not fans of mine because whatever. But I hope they can at least learn tonight that I am trying my hardest to, again, because I don't know what happened. I'm sensitive to this. And if they are wrongfully, maybe we can all put it to rest, but do it with an unbiased, going in with an unbiased look at it first. That's the only way we're going to do it. I mean, it's like I'm from New York. I'm a Dolphins fan, but up here, or let's go to the better one, where I'm a Yankees fan. You put a Yankees fan and a Red Sox fan in the room, argue about which team and which organization's better. Dude, there's literally nothing coming out of that. You're not changing either of their minds. They're both dead set, ingrained into their opinions. And no matter how many statistics I show them, I could bring them and throw at them 27 World Series rings, and they are not going to care. They're better than us, period. And I get it. That's their team. They're digging in. So what you got to do is you want to get somebody that's maybe a Cubs fan, or, a Cardinals fan, or whatever, to come in and say, what do you think? And, that's it. I can't say your name in here because I don't really talk like that, but I appreciate the comment. Is Larry going to solve this case? Larry ain't going to solve nothing. But that's what we do, is we commentate on these cases, and this is one that's a public interest case. It's, getting a lot of talk, and, one way or another, we can at least try to put on tear apart some of these other media outlets as to how they covered it, and, see what we could do to bring some justice, at least to the narrative, for whether it's, ultimately for Christian. Because if Christian's best friend and girlfriend are being accused for 7 years of killing him and he killed himself, he can't be happy with it either. And likewise, Dylan and Whitley, I got to believe, I'm not them, but I got to believe that they can't be happy with people attacking, his mom. And granted, I know I've seen it. His family is attacked, and there's been some nasty stuff. I will, and maybe we'll get into that a little later on, but I'm not going to say I didn't see some of that. Wish I didn't see it because it was really bad. But it's been on every side, and I'm hoping that maybe level heads can prevail, at least on my little tiny corner of this community. And I wasn't going to come in tonight and push Watts stuff just because content. A lot of content creators on Watts Island. Nothing against them. I love them all because I got some great friends. But I always said to myself, if I got to a point where I'm just pushing up and making up content just to continue a show or whatever, then I'm not doing anything. I don't want to do it. I mean, granted, I could have made up some salacious watch this or let's do this, and I'd probably have 600 to 800 people in here. I'm at 400 right now. That's far less than I usually do when I'm on Watts. I don't care though. That's fine. I don't do it for that. I do it because I've kind of have fallen in love with this, found a little bit where I have a voice. Like, I guess I'll just call you fat. I don't really know what to call you, but that was no, I know it was a serious question. I know it was a serious answer. I don't know. I mean, no, I don't pretend that I'm gonna, take on the world. You don't see me calling out, and this might be a little slight jab, but I'm not calling out, come let me take you on and debate you to Peter Van Sant from 48 Hours or Kendall Ray or whoever else, and trying to just, for shock value. Absolutely not. What I'm doing is just discussing it and hoping to give a voice to both sides and have level heads prevail. And then by the time we get through it, we're going to come to a conclusion. Either, yes, this thing's crazy, or everybody, let's somehow come together and make up, because this is not what Christian would want. Because ultimately it is about Christian. And I got to believe that they all would agree with that too, that it is, because he's the one that's not with us anymore. He wouldn't be happy if his friends are being wrongfully, he wouldn't be happy if his friends are being wrongfully accused of his death. And I got to believe that his friends and Whitley and Dylan, and I'm not them, I can't speak for them, but I'm just saying, if I was in that position, I wouldn't, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't want them to bash his mother and his family. I'd understand, but then again, I am not in that position. So I'm trying to be understanding as I can, Also, I'm not being rude to you or your mods, and they keep timing me out against your advice. Jem, I am sorry. Please, I don't know who's doing it, Jem. And I'll probably be able to, on the replay, check it out. I'm just asking people, and I'm sure maybe they have a reason, because I'm not really reading the chat as I'm reading this article. I'm only on one screen. I'm just being honest with you. So when I go over to this article big enough to read it, it kind of covers my StreamYard. So I'm not reading your guys' chats. When you hear me reading, I'm not reading the chat, because it's just not possible for me. I'm just so busy. By the time I get off work, yeah, I got to order some dongle to hook up the external monitor to the iMac, because Apple, everything has to be their own proprietary crap. So I've been having trouble doing that. Nancy S., thank you so much. Thank you. And yes, I'm still going to steal your dog. Love that dog. So yeah, Jem, I don't know who's doing that. I don't know why either. So again, I'm totally in the blind here, but I'm just all I can do for you is ask people please not to, unless she's like, if she's just vehemently disagreeing with things, that's fine. I understand. She knows the case. Like I said, people are going to do that as they go through. But I just hope Jen, if you're yelling at me when you're doing it, which is fine again too. I don't care if you do. But understand that I'm going through this, and I am pointing out when I do it certain points where I'm admitting that there's a narrative going. So I'm trying to show that. See, like this here, where we're going, they said it was a good thing, but they just keep Now you are actually trolling. And it doesn't annoy me, but I just feel like it might annoy other people in there. I'm not asking anyone to time you out or anything, but are we going to learn something new? I don't know. Maybe we are. If that's the case, that we're not going to learn something new and nobody tells stories that you don't agree with or you don't like content or don't want to talk about cases, then everyone should shut down their channels, their newspapers, and their TVs for that matter. Cancel your cable. Don't watch Netflix. Don't watch anything and go stand in a corner and watch paint dry. Otherwise, for the history of mankind, people tell stories, people talk about things, people discuss things in their neighborhood. You go to a coffee shop, they're talking about what somebody did in their neighborhood. We are commentating, coming together as hopefully a good community to discuss a case that is very tragic, where there are still people alive that possibly are having having to still pay for something that they didn't do. And we're going to try to at least talk it out. I don't pretend I'm going to do anything spectacular with it other than to give a place for people to talk. That's it. So if you don't want it, I don't know why you're here. If you're not going to learn anything new, I mean, bounce on out and go watch cartoons, man. Do you? I'm good though. I'm good with discussing this. I'm allowing everybody. Kate's in here, and we've talked. I see where she stands, and it's all good. I think these people, possibly Kate and Jem, may think that I have a different opinion, than they may be surprised. That's why I'm asking them to be patient. It's not suspicious. It's pretty. Oh, this is a response to somebody. So, I won't even. I don't want to get confused. But yeah, I mean, everyone has their opinions, and there's also people on the other side that say it's absolutely murder 100%. And sometimes there's a gray area too. It may not have been either, frankly. And I think that's what the police chief ultimately said his opinion was. And we'll get to that in this article, but is that it may not be either of those. So we got to be open-minded to it all. It may not be suicide. It may not be murder. It may be something in the middle. And it also may be absolutely suicide. I mean, there's a lot of questions that made it get to this point because suicides happen, unfortunately, and it's a tragic thing every day, way more than we know. And they don't get national attention, and especially 7 years later. And it's just, it doesn't. So we got to get to, that's why I'm reading this article, not because I agree with it, not because I think 48 Hours did a bang up job. And I am pointing out as I go along where I don't agree or think that they slanted something. But yeah, I like right now, responding to your comments and that, I mean, generally, some people may just not even read them or respond to you. I am, because I think it's important, and at least there in this first show, that I lay out what I'm trying to do and continue. As I know it's a live chat, so some people come in and out, and they may be just getting here. So I want them to know what my intentions are if they missed it. So again, just ask people to bear with me. So Jem says, I'm giving facts, not trolling at all. Okay. I am very passionate about this case because I disagree does not make me a troll. I have not insulted one of you. And I agree with that. Again, I haven't seen, Jem, your comments. So, I mean, if you're just coming out with pointing out details in that, I expect that, and that's okay. I would hope you're not, and I hope people respect it that are my mods, because we've been very good at not doing that as long as we've had this channel, and even on Watts Island. I would hope that we don't do that. So, please don't. We just you got to let people agree, and she is passionate. I've seen Jem, and she is passionate about the case, and we'll get to that point at some point too about the details, where I'm sure things will get a little more. But right now, I'm literally just going through. Slavis, thank you, man. I appreciate your support too, and I hope you are having a good start to your week this week. All right. Karma, that's awesome. And so far, I've seen her disagree, but I haven't seen her. I'm just being totally honest. I haven't seen her be disrespectful at all. And that's just coming from me. I haven't seen her be disrespectful at all. Disagreeing, and even vehemently disagreeing is not disrespectful. So I don't want anyone timed out for simply disagreeing and throwing out facts, even if they don't believe they're facts. Everything can be disputed. Some things are just simply a fact. And there's a lot of things that, well, there's interpretations that even scholars interpret different ways. So we'll get into that though as we get back. So I'm going to go back over. Ted RX, thank you. I bet you $4.99. The person who timed me out is a pansy. Come on, we can handle bluntness. Don't be a Karen. Ridiculous. Middle school hall monitors. I actually like that. I don't know how you got timed out or why, Ted, but I agree. As long as you're not swearing at anybody, man, I'll say it last time. As long as nobody's swearing at anybody or threatening anybody or, being bully and all that stuff, please, man, say what you want. Anna, thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate it. Welcome aboard. Really do appreciate it. But yeah, definitely don't, time people out just for it. We'll get through this. We will get through this. I promise. It's very emotional. And I know there are people that probably watch. So yeah. And I see our boy Seth came back under another account. That's all good. Michelle, thank you, Michelle. This is a happy, respectful platform. We talk here and encourage each other on facts and theories. We don't attack. Jail. Oh, just Larry. I just got that. Jail is just Larry. A little slow. Is doing what we asked. Love the mods. Thank you, Miyamura. I appreciate that. And yeah, I have made it clear to the mods, and I get it. My mods have been amazing. So I honestly have never seen them. I get emails all the time from people that don't even agree with me or like me or comments. I got one today. Someone saying, at first I didn't like you. I thought you bragged a lot and this and that and the other thing, but I've given you a shot and, your mods handle things and handle things well. And you seem actually to be genuine. I know I am, but not everybody can. But I've also kind of learned things as I've gone through this process that, it's a crazy world out there. Everybody wants receipts for everything. So there's times I have to, I'm not bragging. I'm just telling my name's just Larry before, I'm a pretty self-deprecating person. And thank you, Broken Dishes, so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate that. Very generous, and you're always supportive. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, I have to say sometimes what I've done, just like I guess as an expert witness gets up and they talk about their resume as to why they feel they can give an opinion on something. So sometimes when I feel it's an opinion that I'm strong about and I have a history about, I will say it. What I've done and how it relates to my life experiences is really that's all we have. And I'm sure there's people in this chat that have some really great life experiences that they can add to all these cases. And that's how you really build a community, and you try to get at least as much understanding out of these cases as you can, as is possible, I guess, because you really can't get all the truth sometimes. But you all in here offer things that I can't imagine offering. I don't know what you all do for a living or what you've done in your life, but I know that I haven't done it. And if I needed things, there's a lot of people I've met and friends here that I will go to for expertise on things because of their life experiences. And they'll come to me if they want something about politics or whatever. Oh, nice, Yancy. Or Nancy, Yanks up 3-2 top of the eighth. Oh boy. And I'm missing that tonight right now because we're 2 games back from Boston still. And it's early though. Boston always plays great in April and May. Yankees are a September, October team. That's when we shine. But thank you so much for your support again. Thank you, and for the update. So anybody that's worrying about the Yankee game, we're up 3-2 in top of the eighth. So take that. And with that being said, I'm going to turn chat away from chat, and I'm going to go back to reading this narrative, see if we can at least get through this tonight. And I forget where I go. So for Christian's family, that horrible night in 2014 started a search for answers that continues to this day. Ray, now this is Christian's mother, we took the time to have his funeral, and then the very next week, we started going to the police department. From the beginning, the Andreacchios had questions about that 911 call placed by Christian's friend, Dylan Swearingen, around 4:45 p.m. Now, keep in mind, he had planned to get back by like 5 or 5:30 because he had to get back on that boat. So this, according to the official account, it was about 4:45 p.m., which is when this call came. Some have questioned the call, but I don't know. I'm not an expert at telling when someone's faking and that. I don't get into that. And you'll hear that in some of their comments, but I don't really put too much into that. You guys can decide if you want to when we get a chance to listen to the actual call, which we will do. Not tonight, but we'll get to it. I wanted to get to at least laying the groundwork here as to why we got here and why it's so controversial. Do you really? Or is that a joke, Amy? That's awesome, though. If you do, well, it's awesome what you do, period. Thank you for the support too. I appreciate it, but it's awesome what you do too. And I wish you lived up here. I bring them to my cousins, but I would cheat on her for my cousin for to take them over and see you. Especially she's first off the young one. She's not even one yet, and she's a female. And the older one, the boy, I have 2 Shih Tzus, and he is like Mr. Dapper. If it's raining out, he won't go outside. If he doesn't even like to put his feet on the grass, like he's clean all the time. And the new one, the girl, she's a knucklehead. She's the best. I love her to death, but she is something else, man. She goes out there, she's digging holes all through my yard. So now that winter's gone and it's getting nicer, I got to go fix these holes that she digs, which looks like they go all the way through to China. Huge holes. And she's just this little dainty thing. And she's white, so she gets filthy, and her fur seems to grow 10 times faster than his. We try to keep them where we take them both at the same time. And yeah, that's my side story. Yes, you're right. Squirrel. Karen, you're absolutely 100% right. Definitely squirrel. So mods, just before I go back over, please no more. And I'll go back and check, and that's fine if I have to get to that point that I see some others do. I'm too nice. I don't like doing it. So please don't make me like pulling wrenches and things. But I'm just begging you, unless they're screaming at somebody, bullying somebody, swearing at them, disagreeing, even vehemently disagreeing, I don't mind. Disagreeing with me, even a little bit of bullying to me is fine. But not to the point where it could hurt somebody else. So other than that, man, like, you all know me by now. I don't want people timed out and stuff like that for, I'm very lenient on that type of thing. People deserve to be able to have their opinion, even if I think it's crazy. And O'Doyle Rules. I love O'Doyle Rules. That's an awesome name, actually. Squirrel. Yeah, definitely squirrel. But it's okay because tonight was supposed to be informal. I wanted to lay it out, and that's what we're doing. We'll get through it. Where was this comment? Similar, Larry, were you a geek in grade school? Most successful people were. Honest to God, no. I was talking to someone tonight. I don't know if they want me to say who, but just before the show, one of our great supporters, subscribers, and I consider a friend. Just before the show, I was talking to her and I was telling her, no, actually, I was always that guy. And it's probably going to catch up with me. That would just, go out partying, playing sports, do whatever, party all night, and then wake up in the morning in college, and I'd go to class and take a test the last minute and somehow ace it, without even taking notes and things. But that's probably going to catch up with me, especially as I get older. So I probably should start doing more notes. I do a lot of things off the top of my head, and I rely on that a lot. So I'm seeing, especially in this case, it's going to definitely need me, because I got people like Jem here and Kate who are going to hold me accountable, and I like it. So, you know, and that's what I want. They're going to hold me accountable. So if I have 1 minute wrong, then, you know, I'm going to be sent out to pasture. So Jem says here, Larry, we have to discuss the GSR result. I agree, Jem, and we're going to. I'm just getting to kind of, like I said, I'm just trying to get to where we know how we got here. And, you know, I hope that makes sense to you. If it doesn't, I just ask you to, you know, stick with me, you know, because I know where you're going, and we're going to get there. I promise. Just want to see how we got here. See, like stuff like this. Larry is taking money from people and then dismissing someone who he was a bad person to. Is posted on a channel for all to see. He is not authentic. Okay. So like stuff like that. Like you could say what you want, but I mean, taking money from people and then dismiss. I don't even know what drama you're talking about. I have no idea. I have no clue what you're talking. Like I don't. If you think like I saw something out there and dismissed them, or then like there's people with some issues out there, and I know who some of them are. Like they just make things up, and like believe it or not, I don't see much of anything on out there. I try to at nighttime usually when I'm laying down, but I'm doing things like I don't see all this stuff. So I really don't. Unless someone sends me something. I don't know where you guys see the troll accounts. I don't really know what you're talking about, Reshape. No clue, zero. Just Larry. That's it. What do you want me to tell you? Just Larry. I can only do what I do. You know, love me or hate me. And apparently a lot hate me because I'm down to 330, so that's cool. And let's move on. Prove to me you're not insane. Me not insane? I don't know. I don't know how I could prove you that. I don't even know if it's possible. I might be. I don't know. Let's go back. All right. So Ray says we took time at his funeral. So again, we get back to Christian's friend. So Dylan calls around 4:45. They wonder, is this a genuine call or an elaborate act? So now, again, I'm trying to show my fairness here. The way you're setting that up, yes, for the media, you're building it as sensational. Could it be right or wrong? I don't know. But I'm saying I do see where, you're building that up, to be this, oh, is it? So anyways, they start playing the operator's call. The operator comes on, 911, what's your emergency? Dylan's the one that does the call. He says, ma'am, we've had a suicide right away. We've had a suicide. Operator, you had a suicide? Dylan says, yes, ma'am. Operator, who is it, sir? Dylan answers, Christian Andreacchio. Whitley is heard at this point wailing in the background. She's crying, which at this point, again, maybe I'm wrong. I know there's people on the Christian side, they're going to say that I should absolutely know that this is fake call. I don't know that it's fake because a young girl that young, finding someone dead, they should be wailing. I didn't hear anything in that call to tell me she was faking that, or Dylan was faking the call. I don't know what somebody, nor do I think any of us knows what somebody in that situation should 100% act like. And everybody, there's like a playbook for how someone acts. So I didn't really hear anything in this call. And you guys can be your own judge when we play it next show. But I didn't really hear anything that did this to me. So anyways, they go on to keep playing it. The operator says, okay, just try not to touch anything, okay? And Dylan starts yelling out, Whitley, Whitley. So at that point, he listens to the operator, and operator says, is she up with him? Dylan does tell her, come down here. They don't want you to touch anything. Come on. Operator says, just trying if it. And then Dylan says, come here, Whitley, come here. So Dylan's telling Whitley to come over and listening to the operator. So then Todd, the father, Christian's father, says, just sounds fake to me. Now, he's the father. I do also want to give him a little leeway here. They think that these people were involved. They're giving their take on it. But me personally, Larry, at this point, I don't really know how I can judge off of that call because I really can't. She was sound to be legitimately freaking out. He sounded legitimately concerned. You guys can pick it apart when we get to it. So Dylan says again, please get somebody up here. I think he shot himself. Now Ray says he's already put it out there in people's mind that it's a suicide. So, now that's how it's going to be looked at. Again, I'm going to show how fair I am. Ray, what she's saying, I understand if she believes that they had something to do with it, that she's going to see into all those details. But I personally don't, because if it did happen that way, well, yeah, you go in, you see him, and when we get into his statement and stuff, you're going to see that he had apparently allegedly, made a threat to kill himself earlier that same day, just an hour or so earlier. So when there's only two people in the house, you come home, one's sleeping, the one's upstairs in the bathroom, door's closed, you come in, there's blood, he's laying over, there's a gun, and you see your friend's not moving, clearly dead. I would say, yeah, he killed himself. I mean, she didn't just shoot him and go back to sleep, I don't think. So at this point, again, I'm not seeing anything really yet that points out. I did point out the questions I have, and we're going to get to that, as Jen pointed out, the gunshot residue and some things that are going to come up that are going to be questionable, at least to the extent that that's how we got here and that's how the media reported it. So Peter Vincent says that, did your son Dylan shoot Christian? Pam Swearingen, that's Dylan's mother, says absolutely not. Pam Swearingen says, on a very bad day, my son lost his best friend. Dylan and Whitley declined to grant us an interview, but their mothers agreed to speak for the first time to 48 Hours. While they wouldn't discuss specifics of the case, they're adamant their children did not commit any crime. Christy Chatterton, Whitley's mother. It was just so shocking. And what she saw, like, she can never unsee it. Christy Chatterton also continues to say, I just want them to know that she did not kill him. That night, Christy rushed down to the police station where Whitley had just been questioned. Christy says, I just hugged her and comforted her. Peter Van Sant said, was she in tears? Christy said she was hysterical. Again, that sounds like what she was on the phone too. So Peter says, he asked, Christian's death, suicide or homicide? Christy Chatterton, now this is Whitley's mother, says 100% it's suicide. Investigators found Christian's body in the upstairs bathroom, leaning face down over a blood-filled tub with that gunshot wound to the right side of his head. Now, we're going to get into the pictures and the diagrams of this later on, so I understand some people are going to be yelling as we get into this part of the story that these are wrong and all that. Again, keep in mind how I've already started covering this. I hope I've gained a little bit of trust or respect, even if you don't like me still. A little bit of trust, respect, how I am presenting this, and at least pointing out things, trying to be fair here. And we're going to all learn this case together. Even though some of us know a lot more than others already and have been further, I know everybody hasn't. So they find him face down. He's upstairs in the bathroom. Think of your toilet. Think of a small apartment bathroom. You got the bathroom, the toilet. Basically, you walk in the door. To the right is the sink, small sink. To the right, next to that sink, is the toilet. And then straight ahead, next to the toilet, is the tub. He's facing the wall, back to the sink and the toilet, and basically head first, kneed in a kind of a prayer position. I hate even talking about this, but yeah, that's how he is, with his head first into the tub. And there's some blood in the tub. So as they go on, all right, right side of his head. 4 months after Christian's death, Benny DeBose became Meridian's new chief of police and took on the case. So now the new chief of police says a lot of stuff didn't make sense. So this is the gun, by the way. And we're going to get to that gun too, where there's questions, but there's, some people that know the facts in this chat right now that are going to point out some answers to some of this. And that's where we're going to, later on, I got a feeling we're going to get into some good discussions on this. Is it true? Is it not? And that's where the case files are going to come in real handy. So Benny, who's the chief of police, and again, We're gonna try this whole back the blue type thing that people have been talking about. Well, seems that the blue in this case is very divided themselves. So you got to pick and choose which blue you like, I guess. Because Benny, the chief of police, says when the gun was sent to the crime lab, they did not find any prints on the gun at all. Christian's prints should have been on the gun. The gun was cleaned, wiped down. This is the chief of police. That was the same question I asked earlier. And that's one of the reasons we are where we are today, because of this fact. Now, he says the bathroom was surprisingly clean, too. So now the chief of police says there should have been some blood splatter on this side and on this side. And he's gesturing to both sides of his head. Now, this was a through and through shot on his head. Entrance on the right side. Keep that in mind. There was no blood splatter, what Benny says. So Peter Van Sant asks him, suggesting what? So the chief of police says that, number one, the crime scene had been tampered with. Probably, most likely, the blood splatter had been cleaned. DuBose, who is the chief of police, says officers bungled the investigation. And thank you, High Priestess. Appreciate that. iPhone 4 can be jailbroken, which Dylan knew how to do. Made his business from jailbroken phones. The body was moved. Interesting. And I think I said earlier that the one piece of biased part that I will admit that I have is that I do believe, we don't know what happened there, but I do believe, and I like I said, I'm willing to have my mind changed as we go through this process for the next few weeks here. But I am willing to have my mind changed. But I do believe, if nothing else, there's an absolute ton of evidence that the scene was absolutely tampered with for some reason. That does not mean he was murdered. It does not mean it was suicide. It could mean there's something in between. Could mean an accident. Could mean they got scared. They were young. They're all young people who, by the way, were partying and, taking drugs and doing that, which I'm not even judging them for. Like, dude, that's what people do, especially in rural areas, young kids, and they go out and do that stuff. Whatever. Christian was, I'm sure, as some evidence has suggested, doing the same stuff. So I'm not judging nobody. But yeah, these are good points. Thank you for the support too. But you're right. I don't disagree with you. I don't know anything about him jailbreaking phones, so I don't know about that fact. I won't speak on it. But that is interesting. And I really don't know. Let's see. Whitney claims she didn't have the phone and then came up to the. Yeah, we talked about that just earlier in this article. I mean, even Cassie Coleman, the DA, concedes that point that she absolutely did. Again, trying to be Mr. Fair Larry, that it's we can have a lot of different, that doesn't necessarily mean any one thing or other, but you're bringing up some good points, and I think at least good points in the sense that that's how we got here, because of some of these behaviors, some of the things that don't make sense. And that's what I'm trying to do again today. I'm going to repeat myself again, squirrel. Is all I'm trying to do is lay out this and be as fair as possible. I've said many times already where I think this was a narrative split. I've said many times where that's clearly Ray's opinion. It's not fact. I'm being as fair as I can be. Kate says, first off, back then it took quite a while to jailbreak a phone. It had to be hooked up to a computer, and also that's interesting too. See, I don't know how that works, and I don't know. I've never jailbroke a phone. I don't know how to. Although I'm a little mad about it. I just upgraded my iPhone not too long ago. My other one I kept, and I have a teleprompter, and it's one of those ones you could use with your phone as the for the app, and then it goes up on the teleprompter. I was going to use my other phone for it. I wish I knew how to jailbreak it, because apparently without my SIM card in there, it won't even unlock and open and let me use apps. So I don't know. I'm old, man. I don't know nothing about this stuff. Trying to look at some comments while I do have this open. There were plenty of suicide text letters the night before, especially. As I should have been telling Mr. Larry. Yeah, and we're gonna get into that. There, the person I talked to before this, before the show tonight. Those are some of the things we talked about. I agree. There's a lot that we need to get into in this. This thing is, again, it's 7 years of this craziness, and maybe it's a very, ambitious goal of mine, um, that I think I could come in and try to bring some sanity to this without screaming and yelling or creating a your side against my side, but just everybody's side, which is justice for because justice for Christians should not be mean it doesn't include Dylan and Whitley. Because if Dylan and Whitley, as of right now, they've done nothing. They've had no they're free people. They've been charged with nothing. And this was, by all accounts, their best friend and their boyfriend. They should want justice for him as well, and justice for themselves if they're being falsely accused. So, but to get there, we got to know how we got here, and we can't have a your side against mine. That's not the right tactic to take. There was a time in my 20s, I was a politician, where I used to think that's how you do it too. I used to go out guns a-blazing on the legislature floor and picking a fight with everybody. And let me tell you where it got me. I burnt a lot of bridges. Um, I think I was a successful legislator, and I fought. Certainly, if you even looked like you might be corrupt, I would come after you. Like I was this, all blazing against corruption. But honestly, you got to pick it. As I've gotten older, I've learned you got to pick and choose your battles. You got to kind of nuance it. You got to be, I'm a student of the art of war. And you can't come out and pick a side. You're not going to accomplish anything unless your goal is simply to be famous or, I could probably do that, do some kind of salacious thing and call out everybody crooks or pick the other side and say Dylan and them ought to go kick all your butts and you guys are bullying them. Maybe I'll get 1,000 people in here and they'll be like, yeah, Larry's throwing F bombs and he's doing nuts. It's not me. Um, it's not what I'm going to do. And I'm going to stick to my character and my integrity. And there's going to be things in this case that you guys disagree with, things you agree with. I'm not going to make everyone happy. And I'm going to, yes, relearn the truth. I will have panels, absolutely. And I'm still going to do open panels. I've come to the conclusion. I don't know if anyone saw this, but I am going to do those. That went so well last time. Everyone was so respectful. And I got so much good feedback that I'm going to do it every Friday, what we did last Friday. Open panel like that. As long as everybody stays the way they were, which was great. People came in and they disagreed with me and they said things, and I think we all handled it well. I was respectful of them. They were respectful of me, and it was really good. So I want to keep doing it as long as everyone stays that way. I'm going to keep doing it all the way through until people, I guess, abuse it. So, yeah, I definitely am going to have panel, and I'd love to hear people's things. I got someone that, I even sent the link to tonight who I think has been similar to me in this case. There she is now. So Melissa, I've heard her speak, very well spoken. She knows the case well. And I think she's coming in with a tact similar to mine, which is let's talk about, after we go through the narrative and how we got there, which is what we're doing tonight, let's talk about the forensics. And then let's go to those questions and let's answer them not with emotion, but with evidence, statements, educated deductions we can make based off of the evidence and statements that we have, and see where we can answer questions and where some answers are still missing, and kind of bring it down to that. That's the way Melissa has been, from what I've seen, absolutely handling it and doing. So, yeah, I told her 100% she can kind of call in tonight for that, because I know she doesn't have a side yet. She just wants the truth. And that's kind of what tonight wanted to lay out there. All that glitters again. Oh my God. If you put info up, please write where you heard or read it so we can go check it out. Larry, as always, you're doing amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. And there's the butterflies. The butterflies are back. Did you put the butterflies back picture? You rock. You're the best. And I know all that glitters hopefully will call in too when we have a panel again. Because I love the accent. So yeah, I hope that explained things. I know people are saying that Larry goes off and talks a little bit, but hey, it is what it is. I like to explain things. I think you deserve it. I wouldn't be here without you guys here. So, and without your support and what you guys do, and all that glitters, whether it's just being a sub, whether it's super chats, all that stuff. Yeah, I definitely I feel I deserve when you ask questions to answer them and give you that respect. Thank you, Jonesy. Jonesy, I haven't been seeing chat, so I didn't think you were here, but you probably been talking all night. But I've been every time with this one screen thing, I can't see unless I'm over, so we must have just been timing off. But it's nice to see Jonesy. And Melissa says, "Oh, thank you, everyone. I'm waiting for Larry to speak about the case, introduce it to it." Perfect. Yeah, and I did. I don't know if you saw, Melissa. I did send you a link. So if you want to call in tonight and chime in on this, you can. Absolutely. I'm on Xanax and I'll hear a gunshot. I don't abuse it, but being drunk and asleep, you hear a gunshot in the room. Yeah, and that's another good point we're going to get to. And whether or not they would, and I think in about a second here, if I could get back to that, the chief of police, or one of them, I think it was him. Maybe I'm wrong. I had to get back into this interview part, but I think he makes a comment about that too. But again, we're all going to Heather. Heather's here. What's up, Heather? Nice to see you here. Thank you for visiting. Um, and finally, I get some love. No, I'm kidding. You guys all giving me love. MS says Larry is my favorite. He's just trying to lay the groundwork. Exactly, MS, and that's how I'm going to leave it with that comment up. I am just trying to lay the groundwork here. Definitely not making any assumption. If anything, I'm being overly fair to every side here. So Benny goes on. He's talking about the blood splatter. That's where we left off. So he says that number one, the crime scene had been tampered with. Probably most likely the blood splatter had been cleaned. Du Bois says officials bungled this investigation. Now, this is the bathroom if you want to get a. I'm a little leery about showing all these. I know there's like autopsy photos that were out there before. Can't believe that they released them. That was pretty horrible. But there are some photos that I still have to make I guess you call it an executive decision, whether or not how much I want to show them because I want to be respectful. But so you get the idea here at least. This is a wall. You walk in the bathroom, very small, typical apartment bathroom. You got a sink, the toilet. If you could see my mouse here, this is the bathtub. He was right around here in the prayer position, leaning face first, head in the tub. Gunshot from here to the right, from the right, entering in his right side of his head, exiting the left. This is where he talks about the blood splatter. There was no blood splatter on the wall over here, and we'll see those photos we will look at. There was no significant blood splatter that you would see from a 44 Kember. Anybody that knows, those are valid questions, is what I'm saying. I know people are going to get mad in here now because I have been fair to both sides. I'm saying when I do have a question, those are valid questions. The chief of police, other people, experts everywhere in the world have said those are questions. It doesn't mean anything yet, but yes, that's how we got here. One of the questions was there's 2 drinks in here. I don't know what that means really. Small apartment. He could have had a beer and then also had his regular drink. Some people say it suggests 2 people were in there, but I don't think too much into that one because it could mean anything. But yeah, this is the outlook of it. And this is where he was. And they're going to talk about a bloody shirt was found tucked in behind the toilet after they had finished their investigation. Again, we'll get into those details when we get into the actual case files and look at the reports and see what was done there. So Benny continues. Benny is the chief of police for anyone just joining us. Taking pictures of the crime scene with a doggone cell phone. That's what the chief of police asked. He said they all were issued cameras, and the pictures, needless to say, were terrible. So we're going back 2014, weren't quite the same quality of camera phone pictures that we see today. So as you can see here, no, they're not the greatest. So Peter Van Sant, or District Attorney Cassie Coleman agrees. She inherited the case in 2018. So that's where Cassie Coleman's even going to agree. The DA that everyone on the other side loves. And she agrees. KH, oh my God, thank you so much. I do try to keep it real. You know me. That's all I can do is be me and keep it real and try to at least show where I'm genuine, even if you disagree with me. And that I am trying to keep an open mind. And again, it doesn't mean I'm going to be right. Nobody is. But all I can do is be me. So thank you, Cage, though, for most importantly for the support. You're always supportive, and you have no idea how much you support several of us. I know me and Dave a lot, and you have no idea how much we appreciate it. Thank you. So Kate says there was drinks all over the apartment. It was a mess. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kate. So that's why I said I don't give that. And we'll see that stuff as we look at more of the pictures when we get into the files. Um, there was it was an absolute pigsty, the apartment, and you're right. Garbage is overflowing, cigarette butts everywhere, packs of cigarettes falling out of garbages, bottles and drinks, several everywhere. That beer bottle could have been from 2 weeks ago, for all I know. Could not even be beer. I mean, I don't know. I choose, so that could be a spittoon for somebody. They were there in the South. I'm sure they spit. I mean, who knows? I mean, and that's one of the reasons why I say that leaving a lot of stuff the way they did without any true answers is why I think that even Dylan and Whitley should be upset with the investigation initially, or at least that day, because it left so many unanswered questions for everybody to dig into. And that's how you kind of go down the slippery slope that we ended up in. But you're right. That's why I really don't give I don't give a lot to that. Let me just say that, that I've heard that, and I only seen it, I think, on social media, but some of the talks about, oh, there was 2 drinks in there, that shows that, and that doesn't show anything to me. So I don't disagree with you. And Amy makes a great point, and that's how I'm going to go back to the article. I'll leave that up there. They should have had called NK to clean it up. You're absolutely right. If you all followed the Watts case also, Chris Watts had a great cleanup person. So let's see here. All right, so I'm getting messages. I don't see anything as I'm going through this chat. Unless, are people still getting, because I'm getting messages and I can't really do it during a live show. I don't really see any issues unless I'm missing something, because I don't see any people. Are people still getting timed out? I mean, I don't have time for this. People still getting timed out. I don't see any of my mods being really crazy. I don't see much of a problem with any comments coming in. Seems that everybody's kind of calmed down and got an idea of where I'm going, and I'm at least trying to be fair, at least with the initial presentation. And I really hope that people aren't being timed out still. I don't see it, but I'm getting messages that might be happening. I just don't get it. I'm a little confused. Let's just roll with it, people. I see everyone. To me, it looks like we're all having a constructive live right now. So Jeremy says, do you have Patreon, Larry? Great job. I follow CDT and Mexi and Zavgro and Robbie, and you're becoming a favorite as well. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that, man. Those are a lot of my favorites as well. Definitely. CDT obviously is, I'm partial. You want to talk about biases? I'm biased to CDT because they were like my first loves on YouTube and first ones to listen to me rant about my Watts theory and talk. And at the same time, though, I blame them because they got me addicted to YouTube, and I love it. So, yeah, somebody, I don't even know how to block. Just, this is one chance you guys will all get me right on tape and you could cut it up. How to block someone. Just do it. I don't know how to block someone, but just do it, because you'll all see. If I had to show, I would show it, but I'm not going to get into the drama. I mean, there's just a problem there that goes way back. So that just, I don't know. I don't know how to even block people. So, oh, there we go. That works. That takes care of that. Perfect. So, carrying on. And there's, speaking of CDT, there's one half of the CDT with Miss Amber. Oh, I'm sorry. Reclaim your truth. Yeah, it's I don't know if someone. I'm assuming because you said that someone probably posted it. It's just the 48 hours kind of transcript of their video. I didn't know if they can. And again, I mean, it's pretty hard to pick something everyone's going to like, but I wanted to go with something that was a little more mainstream to try to lay it out as to why we got here, why there's so many questions, and then we could pick apart the way the media's covered this and go through the actual case as we do it. But I want to. That's what we're doing tonight. So I just posted the link to what I'm actually reading. Hopefully that helps you. Um, all right. So back to now we're talking. So that's a point I want to make out is that even District Attorney Cassie Coleman agrees that, and she again, there was originally a different district attorney. I think his name was Mitchell. With some interesting things as we get down the rabbit hole we'll talk about, but I'm not going to go down there today. But she inherits the case and in 2018. And so Peter Van Sant asked, would you use the word incompetent? Cassie Coleman, yes, without a doubt, it lacked competence. It lacked thoroughness. So again, back to, I know we were discussing this and I understand there's high emotions, but when I made the comment earlier that 45-minute, whatever it is, whether it was 45 or 50 minutes or an hour, bottom line, they just basically turned it over and you had two people there. You had some interesting things going on. Left a lot of questions. It wasn't just me saying it. The police chief, the chief of police, and the DA, who thinks it is saying she agrees with everyone that it was a suicide. But she's also at least saying, she admits that this case was, in her words, quote, yes, without a doubt, it lacked competence. It lacked thoroughness. So remember, this is a transcript. So that's her in her words saying that. So, I mean, even she agrees. So we got to be fair here that some things are true. Doesn't mean that they killed them. I'm just saying there are things that are true and why people have questions. So Dylan and Whitley were not even photographed. That's pretty crazy. So they weren't even photographed that day. So Cassie Coleman, the DA, says again, there's been a lot of questions about was there any blood on either one of them? The reality is we don't know. So again, Cassie Coleman, the DA, is even pointing out they didn't even check for blood. They took no pictures of them. We don't know. So she just admitted this thing was, in her words, incompetent. It lacked competence and it lacked thoroughness. And basically, she said there's a lot of questions. And she points out they don't know that there was blood. So that's what I mean by when I said, if the narrative and the case is what it is and Dylan and them did nothing, then they should be mad at that investigation. Now, Coleman inherited it in 18. I don't see why they'd be mad at her for saying that, but she's even coming out and saying it, and she's kind of agreed with them. So, I would be upset about that if I was being wrongly accused because, yeah. Again, so all right, let's go back. Ray Andreacchio says, so the timeline that Dylan gives of the events don't really add up. Where they go into Dylan. So Dylan told police Christian had called him around 2 a.m. that morning, urgently asking for a ride home. Now, again, this is coming from Ray, his mother. We're not yet on the case files to pinpoint, and we're going to go through that. What times all these actually happen. This is a transcript. It's coming from all of them. Dylan told police Christian had called him around 2 a.m. that morning, urgently asking for a ride home from St. Rose, Louisiana. Apparently, Christian had found out Whitley was cheating on him. Now, Ray continues to say he was coming home to kick her out of her apartment, or his apartment, but kick her out of the apartment. So Peter Van Sant asked, you believe he was going back to break up with her? Todd, Christian's father, says, yes, sir. Dylan says he picked up Christian and they drove back to the apartment. Almost immediately, Christian and Whitley began arguing when Dylan says Christian suddenly took out a gun and put it to his own head. Now, these are where I start to see the questions that I understand how this case got to where it is. This is coming from his statement, which we have his statement and all that. And I'll post again in the chat for everyone that doesn't have the case files, exactly where they are. And this way they can, I'll even go as far as putting it right to the page of where Dylan's statement is. So you could read Dylan and Whitley's statement, how they're 100% whether people like the fact that it's a fact or not. It's there's absolutely 100% discrepancies between their statements, pretty large ones. And again, I don't know why, because and Jem says, Andrew Bray's, yeah, and we're going to get to that. That's why I said, that's why I made a point, Jem, to point out that this is coming from Ray and the mother. So let's, let's just keep that with, keep that in mind as we go through this. And I think I've been pretty good, Jem, pointing that out where I have, and then I point out where I do have questions. And again, my questions don't mean that they mean anything. You may have good answers for them, and I'd love to learn. Again, we're all in this to learn. That's all it should care about. But yeah, I do agree, and I think I pointed that out. So I hope I got that across. So I put that link in there, and that link goes right to the page in the case files where you can read their statements. So let's go back here. So it says here, Dylan told him that Christian suddenly took out a gun and put it to his own head. So the police chief comments, according to the report, Christian threatened to shoot himself, telling Whitley to tell him she loved him. Dylan ended up saying that he took the weapon away from Christian, unloaded it, and hid it. So that's where earlier you notice I said Dylan handled that gun too that day, and not even his, nor Christian's, nor anyone's fingerprints were found on the gun. So then it goes on. But Whitley told detectives a different story. Now Ray is saying this. Again, I understand Jem's going to hit me, but keep in mind this is Ray, so it's the mother. So they're they weren't there, and but they're going off stuff. So I'm just letting it out there. She says, when Whitley is asked, has Christian ever appeared suicidal? She says, no, I don't think so. That's true. That is true. So that is in Whitley's statement. That's a fact. She says, no, I don't think so. Despite in Dylan's statement, Dylan saying he put a gun to his head just a couple hours before. He had to get the gun, hide it. But then, I don't know, maybe because I had a friend kill himself, I'm not giving that gun back that day, I'll tell you that. But then he calmed down, apparently, and he gives him the gun back, says, here, just, please don't kill yourself. He gives the gun back to him. These are questions I have. You guys may disagree, but they are in the statement. And yeah, so no, I don't think you're being dramatic at all. I don't know. But then again, I'm having a hard time reading the chat. So I don't, so far what I've seen, all I can speak is what I'm reading. And when the time comes, Jem, that we get into the actual nitty gritty of this, that's where I'm going to appreciate you pointing those out. I want to be challenged on the questions I have. Again, I'll be willing to break, spoiler alert here. I don't know, and I'm being 100% honest, what happened that day. I am not willing to say he killed himself. I am not willing to say he was murdered. I don't know. So this is where, when we get to that, we're going to have to sift through this fact and fiction and hopefully come as a team, or whether you want to call it a team or just as a community or whatever, and put aside the taking aside, and we can all help each other learn things. And that's my only goal. So now we're back to the police, or to Ray. When Whitley is asked, has Christian ever appeared suicidal? She says, no, I don't think so. That's in her statement. Ray says there was inconsistencies throughout her stories. Um, According to police reports, Whitley told responders and friends that she discovered Christian's body, but she told a detective at the station that it was Dylan who found him. And those are conflicting statements. If you guys have the link that you can read in their statements, that she does, they do. There's times, and she even told Matt Miller at one point that, and he showed the text messages that she told him that she found him, and then he questioned her on it. Now he's backtracking apparently, but we'll get into all that stuff too. So there's definitely a reason why this case is controversial for sure. And unfortunately, I feel, in my opinion, you could hate me or disagree with me, that there's certain other creators or people out there that are actually doing harm to Dylan and Whitley and taking advantage. Because as with my legal background, working in the law office, being around it, being a lawmaker and all that stuff, no lawyer whatsoever, when we know that this case is still, whether we like it or not, we know that it just got sent over to, back to the AG, although they didn't want it. We'll get into that. Is still actively being relooked at and pressured by on multiple levels, that they should not be speaking, especially in the way they have, without legal advice. That's just my opinion, though. I don't like seeing people used for that. So that's disappointing, because a lot of statements can be very, very incriminating. God forbid this does end up going somewhere else. So Dylan says yes, sir. Dylan says he picked up Christian and Joe and drove back. Okay. Trying to figure out where I was. There were inconsistencies throughout their stories. According to police reports, Whitley told responders and friends that she discovered Christian's body, but she told a detective at the station that it was Dylan who found him. So the police chief says she claimed to be asleep on the sofa, and a .45 caliber handgun is discharged, and she slept through it. Peter Van Sant asks, "Is that believable?" Chief of police, no, not at all. Peter Van Sant, you know your guns. How loud is a .45? Chief of police here, that should have been heard 2 to 3 apartments over. This is Dylan. This is Whitley, just for reference. So, and remember, gunshot residue was present on both Dylan's and Whitley's hands. While police have not publicly commented about the GSR, gunshot residue, on Dylan's hands, Whitley told investigators she had an innocent explanation. So Ray, her response was, this is Christian's mom speaking. Her response was, "Well, I'm going to have it on my hands because I was shooting guns the night before." She said she'd been target practicing with friends, a claim one of those friends said was true, but another said was false. But the Andreacchios are questioning everything, including something odd Dylan did earlier that day. Peter Van Sant asks, "What do you see in this picture?" He's referring to this picture. Ray says, Christian's mom says, Dylan Swearingen at the credit union. Peter asks, "Who has an account at that bank?" Ray says, "Christian." Now, this is the picture they're talking about. This is Dylan, and I want to say someone's going to probably beat me down. It was somewhere around 12:30. If I don't have the right minute, I know Jam or Kate's going to actually rip my head off, but it was somewhere around there. Oh, wait, there it is. 12:29, so I was a minute off. So 12:29 p.m. Remember, they got in around 11:30. So about an hour after they got in, not long. But that's him, and he went in and was trying to, and they all concede to this, he was trying to withdraw all of the money from Christian's account. And he ultimately didn't have the right information, or it was because it had to actually be Christian. Dylan says that Christian told him to. There are text messages from Christian's phone giving him his social security number and date of birth and things like that. And, so and I'll continue going on. So these photos were taken at 12:29 p.m., around 4 hours before Dylan called 911. Dylan told investigators that Christian had given him his debit card with a startling request. Ray says he says that Christian told him to withdraw all of his money, that he was giving him his money. But there was one little problem. Dylan didn't have Christian's PIN number. So he left empty handed. So right there, I have a question. This could be answered in the case files. We don't know yet. But he gave him his date of birth, or his last 4 digits of his social. I'm saying this, you guys will see it when we get into the case files and the text messages. He did conceitedly give him his account number and his last 4 of his social. But if he was looking to get money out, and this is a question I have, and I'm going to have later, so kind of table it, but I want to say it for Jem and Kate and those that have clearly taken a side, which is okay. I respect it. But the question I have is, at that point, if it was that important to him, and we know Dylan didn't have money because he had to borrow money for whatever. So why couldn't he just text Christian right then at 12:30 and say, hey, I'm at the bank. They won't let me do it without your PIN number. Can I have your PIN number? Or did whoever had Christian's phone not know the PIN number? I don't know. Maybe there's an answer, but these are good questions. Because if all they needed was the PIN number and he had already texted his last 4 digits of his social and his account number, why couldn't he just text the PIN number? He could have at least gotten out with that PIN number. But again, this is just an account from the media, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's more to it that I missed. So anyways, Peter asks, is that suspicious to you? Now, the chief of police says absolutely. It's suspicious. Ray said he arrives back. He said that they watched a couple of movies. That's where I start to have questions again. He's supposed to be back to work by 5:30. We're already talking back at 1 o'clock. They start to watch movies. Now, he had just gotten in a heated fight. We got to think common sense here. You're in this position. You're a 21-year-old kid. You're having a heated fight with your girlfriend that you just got off your boat for, drove 3 hours one way, had to be back, and your job's on the line, all this stuff. And even if you were going to kill yourself, you just calmed down, then said, I'm going to watch movies. There was a few minutes earlier, he was supposedly had a gun to his head. It doesn't make sense to me that you're going to waste time. That's valuable time. You're going to see that this timeline, they stretch it. They stretch it good. Right up to that 4 whatever something thing there. And I don't know what movies they watched, but your average movie is at least an hour and a half. So you're talking with a couple movies, there's 3 hours, there's naps in between, there's several people going for several runs to stores, all within 5 hours. We're really stretching a lot of things. So this is where a lot of questions come in as to how they did all this and how it becomes logical in the context of someone suicidal and with a gun to their head and a major fight, and he's kicking out his girlfriend. Now I'm going to start getting a little bit, again, not making claims something happened, but if you can't understand why these questions are there, then that might mean you're too close to the tree to see the forest. You got to step back. So, all right. And that could, and again, I'm going to try not to get caught up with the chat too much. I want to get through this because it's already been over 2 hours, and God Lord, I can't do that. So I want to get through this article at least. But anyways, Kate says Dylan didn't want the money. That's why he didn't get the PIN. He was just trying to appease Christian to calm him down. Fair enough. It's possible, but again, that sounds like it's not in context of things. It still raises a question because remember, we're talking about someone that was everybody there's warrants issued for. So they're not, we just heard from the DA and even the chief of police. there's questions regarding this case, no matter how you think, and it is open still and being relooked at. So, is that's what Dylan's saying? And I'm not calling Dylan a liar. I'm just saying the same way I said you got to take what Ray said with a grain of salt. I'd be irresponsible if I didn't say the same applies to Dylan. I'm being overly fair here, but I have to say the same applies, that you have to take that with a grain of salt. None of us knows that to be true. What the reasons why he didn't do it. It just doesn't make sense to me as a practical point. Right, he was cheating. We're going to get to that too as we get into this, but he was cheating. Yeah, she was cheating. We know, and that's where, again, when we get to the gunshot residue, she apparently, even if you agree that she the night before was out shooting, which Matt was absolutely adamant, although he may have backtracked his story. I don't know what he's getting out of that, because that's dangerous on his part, and that's where I think that some other people are leading them down the wrong path, and they clearly don't have good, if any, legal counsel advising them. But needless to say, he's gone on the record on video and shown text messages and blatantly, denied 100% when he had every right not to. And so even if you believe, though, that she did shoot a gun, every ounce of scientific research I've done shows that the gun residue is going to last anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. She also, by Matt's account and everyone else, they had sex that night. So she had sex, she had a night out, hanging out with her friends, and then slept all night, and then got up and had this fight with him and all this, and never washed her hands, never showered, never rubbed on anything to where this gun residue would still be on her hands. It just doesn't. Anyone that's been around guns knows, and not to mention, not only has been around guns, but that reads the science on it. It's very questionable, to say the least. Is it impossible? No. Gem Rose, I believe so. Not Whitley and Dylan, or I don't think, but Christian didn't have any drugs in his system. But I do believe, and I'll even go as far as saying that I do believe, I do believe that Christian and all of them, dabbled in drugs and different things and partied and all that stuff. And I'm not judging anybody based on it. I mean, it comes into context for certain points of this, but yeah. So we'll see. So back to this, and I got to get through this, guys. This is long too, so Jesus. All right, I'm just going to ram through this part. So, and these were a lot of questions. Go. So Dylan and Christian had, all right, so is that suspicious to you? So the chief of police already calls that is suspicious to him going to the bank. So Ray says he arrives back. He said that they watched a couple of movies. Dylan said Christian had calmed down, so he gave him his gun back. He says Whitley settled in for a nap. Dylan says he left for another errand, and when he returned, and then they play the operator, 911, what's your emergency? Man, we have a suicide. So when he returns, he went out for another errand. I believe that's the errand where he says he went to look at some speakers and stuff at maybe Best Buy. And again, we're going to get into that, the details. But I question, why are you out taking all these trips and you're looking at speakers, but we know that Dylan didn't have any money. He had to borrow money from his grandma. But again, that doesn't absolutely mean something. I'm just pointing out reasons why the case has questions to it. Some people just go and look and window shop. When I was 21, I was broke too, and I would still go and look at stuff. That we would go look at things that we liked, and I'd go into sports stores and look at bats I couldn't afford. And so I'm just saying it's a question, but it doesn't mean absolutely. But it's a question. So anyways, so Peter Van Sant asked, knowing what you know about this case, if I asked you, was this suicide or homicide, where are you leaning? Now, this is important because this is the chief of police. He's asking him where he's leaning. And the chief of police says neither suicide nor homicide. Peter Van Sant asks, how do you mean? Chief of police, I don't think that Mr. Andreacchio killed himself on purpose, and I don't think anybody else killed Mr. Andreacchio on purpose. DeBose believes Christian may have once again held his gun to his own head, this time upstairs in the bathroom. So now the chief of police says, I believe that Whitley may have reached for the gun and the gun discharged. I don't think there was a motive. I think it was just an accident. The Andreacchios aren't buying it. Now, this is where I said, remember I said before, it doesn't mean that it was murder or suicide. That could be the case. And it could be that they were just scared to death. Oh my God, what do we do? And I hit him. I made him do it. And he killed himself anyways. He was going to do it. But Jesus, the way it looks right now, looks like I killed him. We got to do this. Again, I'm just speculating. But that's a possibility. Especially considering the case and all the different questions around it, and some of the things on the like Kate's pointing out, right? And so that seems to be a reasonable, level-headed, at least comment from the chief of police, that it is possible. So the Andreacchios aren't buying it, though. So Peter Van Sant asks, could it have been an accident? Todd, the father, says, I mean, anything's possible, but I don't believe it at all. Now, Ray says, in this situation, everything points to murder. And then whoever, staged it to look like a suicide. That night, the coroner ruled the death undetermined. And I think that's a good point. It was ruled undetermined by the coroner, not as a suicide. So after an autopsy, a forensic pathologist is the one who labeled it as a suicide. And just like that, the Meridian Police Department closed the case. Ray says, and so then we had to do this, start this investigation on our own. So they began hiring their own private investigators, eventually forming a small army of supporters and experts, including a forensic pathologist named Jonathan Arden, Dr. Jonathan Arden, who some can say they hired, so they're going to be biased, but I know Dr. Jonathan Arden, and I can tell you that Dr. Arden is a class act and one of the best in the business. That oftentimes when he is hired by teams, he will tell them, if your theory is not true, or if you are guilty, then you're hiring the wrong person, because I'm going to be the one to find out you are, and you're not going to like that. So I just want to make sure you're prepared for that before you pay me. So from that perspective, I do know at least Dr. Arden here, and great reputation, impeccable. But he says it is my conclusion that the death of Christian Andreacchio was a homicide. Again, that's just his opinion, though, based off of evidence. Anybody can have different ones. So Todd says, the father of Christian says, we've just been really let down by the police and law enforcement. We had no idea what to do or where to start. Ray and Todd Andreacchio began their search for justice by hiring their own team of investigators, including former Washington, D.C. medical examiner, Dr. Jonathan Arden, who examined the case file. Dr. Arden says, I've performed about 3,000 autopsies on my own. From beginning, my reaction was something is wrong here. Starting with where investigators found Christian's handgun, it was pressed between his left thigh and the front of the tub. Now, Dr. Jonathan Arden says, it's significant to me that the gun is in the wrong place on the wrong side. So remember what we're saying. He's kneeling down in prayer position. Imagine yourself this way. And the entrance is on the right side, exit on the left side. If you're sitting there, this is a gun with a huge recoil, very powerful gun. Shoots it immediately through the brain, almost immediately. Now, yes, you could have spasms, but almost immediately he's unconscious. Boom. And that gun's going to recoil quite a bit, especially if you're holding it yourself and you got, it's a weird position anyways. And boom, that gun's going to go out. It's going to likely go to the right. Somehow this gun did a spin turn and ended up wedged in his left leg in there. Again, this is my opinion. Everyone could disagree, but so far, and I'm open to having my mind changed, this is why I said I believe the scene was altered. I don't see scientifically, physically, using the basic laws of physics and just science that gun could have ended up there without it being altered after he was shot. It didn't. That when they walked in, the EMTs, and found this kid dead, that was not the way that it happened right after he just pulled the trigger. And again, I don't know why they didn't just say, yeah, she did. She was trying to revive him or grabbing him. She was freaking out and things could have been messed up. That would have been a better excuse. I don't know. But there's no doubt about it in my mind that it just simply could not have ended up there. It just could not end up the way it did. And again, I'm only laying this out, not confusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying why there's questions in the case and why it's become such a popular case to talk about. So he says it's significant to me that the gun is placed in the wrong place and the wrong side. Peter asked because he's right-handed, and Dr. Arden says he's right-handed. Entrance wound is in his right temple. How does the gun end up on his left side? Once the bullet goes through his brain, he's unconscious. He can't transfer the gun. Exactly. Now, here in the bathroom is what many believe, although they did not fully investigate, and this is why the investigation needs to be, but what looks like a bullet hole behind him. Now, this light switch, if you remember that picture where the sink was, is right near the sink. So the door's here as you walk in. So he's over here. His back of his head's here. He's shot from the right to the left. How did that bullet go through there and then end up in the tub? So it went right to left, turned back here, got wedged in here. And if you could see here, it looks like this is coming out. And there's a knife, as we'll get into this with the pictures, on a table. It looks to me as if someone lodged out that bullet from the wall and then possibly placed that bullet into the thing. Again, this is why there's questions. And so you got that there, those questions. Again, not saying anybody did it. I'm just saying that. So Kate says that hole was an inch deep. No way. It ricocheted. But again, ricocheted? So one bullet was shot. You're right, Kate. I hope nobody else shot more bullets. There's only one bullet. And if it's one bullet, you got one heck of a magic bullet theory. It's almost JFK again. Better off saying it's not a bullet hole, because ricochet, the shell, and the bullet were found in the tub. So that bullet got back to the tub. And if he's shooting again, right to left, bullet goes from the right to his left. There's only a wall to the left, but somehow it does a U-turn back, ricochets off this wall, comes back, and goes back into the tub. That's literally impossible. I mean, we got to come up with something else than that. We have to. And so here we go. Crime scene photographs show that the bullet had struck the wall on the opposite side of the bathroom next to the sink. But Dr. Jonathan Arden says somehow the bullet ends up in the bathtub and he's leaning over the bathtub. So none of this lines up for him to have shot himself in the position where he was found. It simply makes no sense. Clearly, somebody put him there. It's a staged scene. The coroner placed the time of death at 3:45. And now this is important, but Dr. Arden believes Christian may have died earlier. He says pictures show Christian's body was in advanced rigor mortis. This is true. And he was not only in advanced rigor mortis, he had it on the back of his legs. If he's leaning forward face first into the tub, rigor mortis would set in forward. If it's on the back of his legs, he had to have been on his back for a certain amount of time, at least an hour to 2 hours, and then placed in that position. Otherwise, you can't get rigor mortis on the backside of your legs, period. I mean, this is science. This is not Larry opinions. I mean, it's just basic stuff that absolute, celebrity of a doctor here is confirming. So the coroner placed the time of death at 3:45, but Dr. Arden believes Christian may have died earlier. He says the pictures show Christian's body was in advanced rigor mortis. Dr. Jonathan Arden, rigor mortis is the stiffening of the muscles that happens after death. The development of well-formed rigor mortis tells me that he's been in that position, unmoved, undisturbed for at least several hours, which is true. And I've heard some people on social media I've seen make the claim that that was made hours or a day later or something along those lines. Now, keep in mind, rigor mortis is not something that sets in and never goes away. Rigor mortis sets in and then it goes away after a little while. So if that's the case, that it was a day later or so forth, then it would have been gone. So yeah. Read the case. Yeah, we have. Do you need a link to it? Because I can post you a link to it again. I mean, I have. I absolutely have. But I'm also starting off, and we're going to get there. I'm trying to be so nice, but I mean, maybe I'll just, I guess, throw that to the wind. And there goes your whole case right there, because you guys aren't giving, I'm trying to be as fair as possible to you guys. But you're not doing much justice for the case if I'm being respectful and trying my hardest not to be just argumentative on every point. I explained already what I'm doing here, and I'm going to follow. This is why the questions are there. I'm pointing out where the questions are. I don't remember getting yelled at when I was pointing out the questions I had about Ray and about Christian and about things that I said when I was defending, saying I don't think there was anything wrong with that call. And again, I'm being fair to everything. These parts, though, are questions that anyone would have. And it's not just me. We're talking about a distinguished doctor here, the chief of police. Even the DA says it was screwed up, the investigation. So we're getting to why they think it was screwed up and what was, what didn't have the answers. I don't know what's so hard to understand about that. It's pretty straightforward. I'm not making a conclusion based off of it. I'm just telling you what it is. So thanks, Legislator. Most are fine. Thank you. I appreciate that, Jeremy. And I hope so. I hope they are. I hope I'm doing all right. I can only do the best I can. And I'm going to keep trying. But I got to get through this because it's after 10 o'clock here in New York. I don't know what time you guys are on, but I can't do those Wombat lives till late at night. Got to work in the morning. So he says rigor mortis is the stiffening of muscles. So, which, if accurate, suggests that Christian may have already been dead when Dylan went to the credit union to empty Christian's bank account. So, Todd, Christian's father, says, so, yeah, I believe my son's dead, and I believe he's trying to steal his money. The evidence led Dr. Arden to reach a dramatic conclusion. Now, Dr. Arden says somebody else shot and killed him. Now, he's a doctor. I don't know what but I respect his medical advice on all this. I'm not entirely convinced yet that he can say that 100% based on what we know so far, somebody else shot and killed him. That's a big leap from there's a lot of questions as to what happened, or even a staged scene because someone was nervous about an accident or whatever. That's a huge leap to make. So, but that's what he says. Todd says, I don't see how you can argue with forensics. Science doesn't lie, people lie. That part, Todd, I agree 100%. Peter Van Sant asks, why would someone want your son dead? Ray says, well, that's the answer. That's the answers, that we would like. So the family worked with a team of private investigators, including Sheila Wysocki, to dig further. Now, Sheila says the scene was altered or staged, and usually when you do that, you're hiding something. The Andreacchios have had to fight tooth and nail for the truth. That part I agree with. And again, I'm keeping an open mind, but this is how we got here, and this is how the media got me and everyone else to have these questions. And not just the media, but a lot of them are facts. So I'm mixing in a little bit of what I do know from the case files, but trying to act, let's lay it out there. So, but I agree. It's clear to everybody, and that's my opinion, something was altered there at the scene. Why, we don't know. I don't know that. I can't leap to where Dr. Arden says that somebody killed him yet. but we're going to have a long time to get there. The investigators recorded an interview with Dylan Swearingen a few weeks after Christian died. He had this to say about his visit to the credit union. Dylan, and this was audio they played. That's the only thing that I didn't understand. Like, why did he want me to have his money? Dylan told them that Whitley and Christian were always fighting and that Christian didn't trust her, even sending Dylan to spy on her. So Dylan said that. Dylan, I was kind of like the babysitter. He always would ask me to check on her, see what she's doing. And Dylan repeated that he and not Whitley discovered Christian's body. Dylan, when I opened the door, he was hunched over in the bathtub, and I knew he wasn't alive, just the way he was just staying there, and it didn't add up to me. Whitley's mom, Christy, says the day Christian died wasn't the first time he allegedly threatened suicide, and that Whitley told her about an incident that happened about 2 months before his death. So now Whitley's mom says he had gotten intoxicated and getting angry and heated, and he had put the gun to his head. And he even would put it to her head, and he was asking her if she loved him. But remember, when police asked Whitley if Christian had ever appeared suicidal, she said she didn't think so. Which is true. That is true. Now, maybe that's also true too, but Whitley in her statement did tell the police that she didn't think so when asked if he ever appeared suicidal. Despite hearing that he had his gun to the head that day. I don't know. So Ray and Todd don't believe their son ever held a gun to their head. I don't necessarily believe or disbelieve that, but I understand why two parents would not want to believe that. I do. But so Ray says, we don't think it happened. Peter says, that does not sound like Christian to you. And Todd says, no. However, investigators found a misspelled message on Christian's phone that was sent to Whitley the night before he died. If this doesn't work when I get to my apartment, I'm putting my pistol in my mouth and I'm ending this. I'm ending this once and for all because Whitley, you're the closest I have ever been to happiness. Now, I tend to agree with the DA, believe it or not, guys. I don't know how that message was anywhere other than came from actually Christian. How it didn't come from Christian, I just don't get. Christian had his phone from all we know. And he was out on the boat. Todd says, now Christian's father, I don't trust any of the texts because they were in possession of his phone. Okay, they were in possession of his phone after it, but the metadata can tell you exactly when those messages were sent. So it's not like they could just send them unless again, I'm dumb. Maybe there is a way to hack in and make it look like a message was retroactively sent and go back to the future. I don't know. But so anyways, don't forget Whitley had Christian's phone at the police station. So this is where, again, I'll go in with the article does kind of go back to that don't forget. So they're trying to, again, push that even the slightest narrative on there in a point where I think it's settled that he sent the text. Does that mean, young kids always, I'm going to kill myself. I'll kill myself. I don't know. It doesn't mean one way or the other to me, but it is relevant. And so anyways, don't forget Whitley had Christian's phone at the police station. Todd and Ray believe the message could have been planted. District Attorney Cassie Coleman dismisses that theory. So DA says the phone was on the tugboat with Christian at the time that those messages were sent. And so I do not know of any way that those messages could have been manipulated to appear that they were coming from the boat if she was in Meridian. 3 years after Christian's death, Benny DeBose, that's the chief of police, who had taken over as police chief, decided it was time to get fresh eyes to look at the case. He assigned Captain Jay Arrington. So the chief of police says, I gave him the case and he worked his butt off. Arrington, a 30-year veteran detective of the Meridian Police Department, combed through the case file and came up with a conclusion that Christian's family had long waited to hear. Now, Jay Arrington says it's homicide. Peter Van Sant, are you sure of that? Jay Arrington, absolutely. So detective now, we got another detective coming in saying that. And so we got here, and do you believe that Christian's body was moved at the scene? That somebody moved it after his death? I have no doubt, Jay Arrington says. Captain Arrington, like Dr. Harding, concluded that Christian had been dead for several hours before 911 call was made, allowing time for a cleanup. Jay Arrington, the death scene had obviously been altered from its original state. Arrington wrote arrest warrants for Whitley and Dillon. The charge, manslaughter by culpable negligence, which means unintentionally causing a death while acting with disregard for the person's safety. So there were arrest warrants written. They were written by him. So Peter Van Sant asked were those warrants ever served. So the difference between serving the warrants and the warrants were written. No, sir. In February of 2017, before Cassie Coleman took over, her predecessor decided to hand off the case to the Mississippi State Attorney General's office. They wouldn't comment about it 48 hours. In October 2017, a Mississippi State prosecutor did present the case to a grand jury, but Peter Van Sant says, were you allowed to present your investigative report at the grand jury? Arrington, Detective Arrington, I wasn't allowed to be at the grand jury. It's the only one I've ever done that way. I've ever had done that way. In all my years, that's the only one. I could tell you for 100% fact that's absolutely unheard of. That the man who put it forward did the actual report that warranted the grand jury being impaneled, is not testifying before said grand jury. And his report wasn't even shown to that grand jury. So this is where the questions come in. I wasn't allowed to be there. So without ever hearing from the detective who calls this case a homicide, it's now up to the grand jury whether it will go to trial. Peter Van Sant asked, do you believe in a court of law you could get a conviction? Ray Andreacchio, 100%. Yeah, that's the mother, of course. So Peter Van Sant asks, you were a member of a grand jury, correct? So he brings in now a member of that grand jury. Yes, sir. Peter Van Sant. And what decision was made? The woman at the heart of this, now the crushing blow, the woman at the heart of this Southern mystery, Whitley Goodman, has never spoken publicly about the case until 48 hours came to town. Now they have Whitley Goodman going on to speak. 2 weeks ago, it just came to me, like out of nowhere. Whitley started talking when she agreed to meet our camera crew to get some video shots with her mom. She would not take questions, but she did read a poem. Whitley Goodman, the title is Moist. So this is Whitley now, and she goes on to read a poem. I don't think it's of any relevance, no offense to her, but I mean, it's just basically her writing a poem and nothing there. So then it goes, but there has been no escape for the Andreacchio family, which suffered a devastating defeat in late 2017 when that grand jury returned their decision to not indict Whitley and Dillon. D.A. Coleman, from the jurors that I have spoken with, they did not believe there was sufficient evidence to prove either of these people guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of either manslaughter or homicide. Let me first state that a grand jury's charge is not to find beyond a reasonable doubt. The grand jury, which is why indictments, they always say you can indict a ham sandwich. Indictments are the easiest thing in the world for any district attorney can get. They can control if they want it or they don't. They're secret hearings. And the burden is not beyond a reasonable doubt. They just have to show that there's probable cause and that they were correct and that it deserves a jury. They were correct in charging them, pretty much. And that there's a questions of fact to remain for a jury to decide. And then it goes to trial, an actual trial, criminal jury, not just and we could probably have a time later where we'll talk about how grand juries work. But that's, so she's kind of misleading there, Miss Coleman. So the Andreacchios were crushed. Todd says, I feel like the Meridian Police Department, the Attorney General's office, and everybody involved officially has let us down. They let somebody get away with murder. Whitley's mother sees the grand jury's decision as just. Now, Whitley's mother, she said she loved him dearly. The greatest tragedy for her is still losing him and finding him the way she did that day. The Andreacchios were determined to keep their son's case alive, so they took to social media, starting their Justice for Christian Facebook page. And in June 2019, the podcast Culpable started covering the case. Culpable, whether you guys like it, dislike it, whatever, amazing work, amazing production. If somebody can share their link, that would be great. The actions of Whitley Goodman and Dylan Swearingen were now being judged by a national audience. And people from coast to coast became enraged, and they acted on that rage. Among their targets, DA Cassie Coleman. Peter Van Sant, have you received threats? Cassie Coleman says, yes, sir. I've received threats toward me, toward my family, threats of physical violence. She starts crying. Peter says, take your time. Cassie says, there's a lot of tragedy and heartbreak in everybody's family. Peter Van Sant says, do you sleep with a gun by your bedside? DA Coleman says, yes, sir. Peter Van Sant, it's that serious? Cassie Coleman, yes, sir. This past August, the controversy grew even more intense. Right before 48 Hours traveled to Mississippi to cover the story, Captain Jay Arrington's, he's the one who did the report saying it was murder or homicide, investigative report from 2017 was made public for the first time. Ray says, I realized that this was things we had never heard. Peter Van Sant says, Arrington writes, in my thoughts, it could be suicide, homicide, or accidental, with one of the three to be proved with facts. Until that is established, the death should be classified as a homicide. That's a heck of a sentence. When you read that, what did you think? Todd Andreacchio says, I was shocked. 48 Hours spoke to Cassie Coleman just days after the report was released. Peter Van Sant asked Mr. Arrington's findings, this report, was it presented to the grand jury? Cassie Coleman says, yes. I have had conversations with grand jurors that were on the grand jury, and I've had conversations with the investigators that were presenting the facts, and they told me that all the reports from the Meridian Police Department were presented. But, while 48 Hours was reporting in Mississippi, we found a grand juror who said that's not true. Peter Van Sant, you were a member of the grand jury that was looking into the Christian Andreacchio case, correct? Juror, yes, sir. The grand juror agreed to speak if we agreed not to use her name or show her face. Peter Van Sant says, I'm holding a report that is dated January 11, 2017, and it was written by Captain Jay Arrington. At the time, had you ever heard of this man's name before? Juror, no, sir. Van Sant, read the major findings of Captain Arrington's report, none of which the juror said she knew. Van Sant read it out to her, and she didn't know. So Van Sant asked, does that bother you? Is that something that you find in any way disturbing? Juror, yes, it's very disturbing because it seems that he had a lot more information detailed in his report than what we were presented. Todd Andreacchio says, I think it's a travesty. I think my son deserves more than that. Now, with the release of Arrington's explosive report, the Andreacchios were finally beginning to think maybe they might have one last chance at justice for Christian. Todd Andreacchio, I think we need feds or somebody to come in here and clear this up. I don't trust anybody over in Meridian. I don't trust the DA we've got right now. I don't trust the DA we've got right now. I don't know if that's a double thing there. Anyways, I wouldn't want her anywhere near my son's case. So the case is far from over. This past November, like they do every year, the Andreacchio family and their friends celebrated Christian's life. Ray Andreacchio says today's Christian's birthday, November 4th, and this is our 7th night, wishing night, heartfelt messages are wishing on lanterns. So they do this little lantern light. I think you can see that done in the Apartment 801 documentary series that Kendall Ray did when she went down there for that. This peaceful evening stands in contrast to the war of words and deeds in the emotional case fueled by social media that includes acts of cruelty. Ray says all of Christian's autopsy photos were placed on social media and I think downloaded over 2,000 times. Todd says they harassed my daughter. Ray says, I still believe someone set her car on fire. Pam Swearingen, we've been run off the road. Peter Van Sant asks, are you kidding me? Pam says, absolutely not. Christy Chatterton, that's again, that is the mother of Whitley, says, I bought a new car and within 3 weeks it had bullet holes in it. So you see, this is almost like a Hatfield and McCoy type thing. It's going on down there. In 48 hours interview with District Attorney Coleman, she said she would reconvene a grand jury if it turned out that Captain Arrington's report had not been presented. Cassie Coleman, I have said repeatedly and stand by, if that information was not presented, then yes, this is a situation that would open the door to allow the case to be re-presented to the grand jury. 3 months later, Peter Van Sant told Coleman that 48 hours learned from that grand juror that she was not informed of Captain Arrington's 2017 report, a fact that may have changed her opinion on this case. Juror, I think they should have done more investigating and brought it back to the grand jury again with more evidence, especially that report, to present it to another jury to decide if that it would be indicted or not. Coleman confirmed that Arrington's report was not presented. So she said before, when he's following up with her now, she pretty much lied. She said, yes, it was presented, but now she's been caught out there and it wasn't. Now the DA knows what's presented and what's not presented. They make those decisions. So that's ludicrous. No matter what side, I don't care what happened here. That's just a ludicrous lie that she got caught in. So Coleman confirmed that Arrington's report was not presented to the grand jury and said she is willing to reconvene a new grand jury. She acknowledges the Andreacchio family doesn't trust her to present the case, so Coleman is trying to find another prosecutor. So Ray says, we're 100% confident that if the information is presented fairly, that people will be indicted. And then, of course, from there will be a trial. Complicating matters further, nearly 3 years after he finished his report, Captain Arrington, isn't this interesting? Captain Arrington was indicted in federal court, accused of using city funds for his personal use. J. Stewart Parrish is Arrington's lawyer. J. Stewart Parrish said, the allegations are false. They arise apparently from somebody either intentionally or maliciously misleading other folks. Caught in the middle of all of this are Dylan Swearingen and Whitley Goodman's families, Peter Van Sant. Is there anything that you would like to say to the Andreacchio family? Pam Swearingen, that we loved Christian. Christy Chatterton, mother of Whitley, we grieve for him too. Pam, we grieve for him. So Whitley Goodman's attorney, Bradley Clanton, has filed a $47 million lawsuit against the Andreacchio family, the podcast culpable, and others for defamation and emotional distress. Bradley Clanton says, you can't torture people for the rest of their lives because they got accused of a crime. The civil suit also seeks an injunction to shut down the Justice for Christian Facebook page and end their public accusations. Bradley Clanton, you've had 4 to 5 law enforcement agencies, all the way up to the Mississippi Attorney General, look at this, and everyone has reached the same conclusion, that it's a suicide. Well, not really, because you got many independent reports. You got the detective, you got the police chief of police, that all said it was an altered scene, and there's more to it. So it's not exactly true. Whitley Goodman reading her poem. She goes on to read the poem. Todd says, there's only one life actually destroyed, and that's my son. He's not here anymore. So the case goes on. Ray says, I think that they wake up every morning and they have a choice of what they're going to do with their work day or with their day. You know, they get to go out and live and love and travel and get married if they want to and have kids. And, you know, Christian, that's a choice taken away from him. She gets emotional and says, doesn't he deserve justice? Don't we deserve answers? The Andreacchios are lobbying for a law named after their son. Christian's law would restrict the public release of autopsy photos in Mississippi. I think that's valid law. That's a good case to be made. We can all agree on. So I'm not going to get in. Then we got to wrap this up. That's how we got the essence of how we got here. I tried to pick the most. And again, you could see it's still, some are going to argue. And I even at points pointed out where I think they painted a message that, they're media too. They have an agenda. So I think I missed and I apologize. I think I missed a thing here. Just going back, trying to see if I missed anyone's super chat or sticker or something like that. I apologize. I do see Ted RX says phone carrier reports do not back up that comment. and I missed it, so I don't know what my comment was. I hope, yeah, I hope, that. And again, Ted, honestly, we will get to whatever I said, because I was just reading this and I'm kind of trying to give a little bit of opinion on it as to what I think and how we got here. And I think everybody could see the case, and then hopefully people look at some of the videos and they'll see. Certainly there was definitely some biases and things early, but there's also good reason too for some of them, because there are some major questions. Now we have to decide whose fault are those questions. Were they just simply because they did a really terrible small town local yokel, mucked up the whole frickin' investigation, and it left too many questions out for innocent people? Or is there something else going on? Those are the questions out there. You can't have your cake and eat it too both ways. I mean, even the DA, who is protecting and defending the two people that are questioned, at least for now, which is Dylan Whitley, is saying the investigation at least was absolutely not done right, for to put it nicely. And the chief of police is saying the same, also believes that something else happened. So to say everyone has just cleared them is not true. The case is still going on. We gotta kind of be factual. We got to be honest with ourselves when there's questions. I'm honest when I think that there's things that make sense, and I'm honest when I think that there's things that I just don't see how they happened. So that's my opening on this. I am staying open-minded still. And thank you, Blue Waters. I try. It was rough. Only way is probably by not looking. Because I know there's definitely some heated people, and I get it. I don't want anyone shut down for that. We're gonna make it through this, I promise. Thank you, Melissa. Oh, you're saying Kate did great. Um, but no, yeah, I didn't see anything, Kate. I mean, Kate obviously disagrees with me, I'm sure, on a lot of things, but I also see there's things that I agree with her on. So maybe I'm the oddball out there that's trying to just not take a side and trying to get through this thing, wade through it, this landmine, without without actually taking a stance and being fair to both sides here. And then we're gonna get through this, and we're gonna come to hopefully all come out of this with a final conclusion. Oh, this was something that I didn't realize that was a response to somebody. Sorry, guys. You're welcome, Jennifer. Thank you all. Even Jem, Kate, and several others that came over, and I do appreciate it. As we get through this and work through this over, the next few shows and digging into a lot of these files and stuff, I'm sure I'm going to learn things from you guys. I just ask you to be, a little open-minded to me as well. Jonesy, my patience. Yeah. Funny part is I feel like I don't have patience in real life, but I mean, I don't know. I do my best under pressure, to be honest. But yeah, so we're going to get into a lot of these case files that they talked about. This was just to show how we all can have questions and how the media puts it out there. And I read it verbatim. I did put my opinion at things, and I went with both sides at times where I agreed with both sides. Yeah, Ashton says I don't have patience. So Ashton, zip it. Yeah, so we're gonna go through all that, and I'm trying to agree to kind of look at this thing, being open-minded. We all would be crazy if we said that we don't come in with some bias, and that's why I admitted right off that my main bias is not that I think that anyone killed anyone yet or anything like that, because we don't know what happened. One thing I am, and you'll have to change my mind to it, is that something was changed there. I don't know how anyone could argue with that. The crime scene was altered. It did not, and pretty much all and we'll see as we get through the reports and stuff, but pretty much all, if you read between the lines of them and some in the direct, you'll see the police chief, even the DA. She didn't say anything about it being altered, but she said it was botched investigation. The investigation was not good. So a lot of people, most people do believe at least that part. So yeah, and now we just have to kind of, and I know Dylan watches. I don't know if he watches this, but whatever. I mean, I hope if he does and he talks or whatever, please, people, be respectful to him too, to my mods and that, because again, we don't know what happened, and it's got to be tough to be watching this. And we're all discussing, his life in essence. So I'm a little sensitive to that because although not in this, nothing like this, I've lived a public life as a, former elected official, father doing the same. I've lived that life before where you get sick of people peering in. You feel like you live in a fishbowl. Everybody's looking at you and judging you. So unfortunately, that's the life I was born with and then chose myself as an adult. Dylan and Willie, fortunately, were put into this. And that's why I say they should be madder than we are about the investigation. If all these questions have answers, or if it wasn't, whatever happened, they should be madder than we are. If it really is exactly as the narrative and as their statements, although their statements are different, as their statements say, then they should be the ones that are the maddest out of all of this. Absolutely. Because they're, that lack of investigation and stuff definitely hurt them. So, thank you, Melissa. Thank you. And Jeremy, thank you again. Larry, thanks for starting your channel. I know you didn't want to in the beginning, but it's so important to have legitimate people in this community. Thank you, Jeremy. You have no idea how much I appreciate that, because I also get the flip side of people yelling at me. You said you weren't going to start a channel, and look at you, and you're taking super. Dude, it's a natural progression of, I was talking, I found something I enjoy, I love. I don't know if, it's something I'll do forever or whatever, but I enjoy it as long as I've met some awesome people. I don't get mad. I don't flip out on people, even if they disagree. I hope they could at least go away respecting that I am not a jerk. I do what I do. And so Jem says that's why Whitley's suing. Yeah, and I think she should. I think that lawsuit should have been aimed at the police department too, though. That's just my opinion from working for a civil rights attorney, and having them in my family all over. That my history there is, I absolutely think they should have been suing that police department too, and without doing so, because any botched, if it absolutely happened exactly like they say, then they would want to sue for a screwed up investigation because that caused them to have this hurt. And that would be a legal claim. It absolutely could be a question of fact for a civil trial. And it absolutely has standing. I could guarantee you that. And if she wants a real attorney, she can come and I'll help her get one that would make that argument. But the flip side to it is, if it didn't happen that way, a good attorney is going to find that out too. You made it through alive. Awesome job as always. Thank you, Blonde Ambition. And thank you so much for your support and your help and your guidance and your advice that you give. It's awesome. I appreciate it so freaking much. Melissa too. Melissa and Blonde Ambition have really helped me with this. Been pretty steady minds and unbiased, I think. So yeah, we're going to do a lot more talking on this, and we're going to dig into it. And now we get a chance where I hope we can try to get these questions and kind of battle back and forth. And I don't mean battle in a bad way, but it's good to have these debates, and we'll do that. But anyways, I think everybody, it's been over 3 hours again. I made fun of people for doing this. My dog's going crazy for me, says my fiance. Poor Al. That's the girl, the little rug rat. that runs around digging holes and gets filthy after she just gave her a bath 2 days. She goes out and gets filthy and digs another hole and gets dirty. Unbelievable. So yeah, we'll dig in. Thank you guys for Nikki B. Where's I in New York here, upstate New York, Oneida County, Onida, which is right. That's a Syracuse area, Syracuse, Utica, from Utica. So yeah, thank you all so much. I appreciate the patience. I hope most of you got it and understood. But anyways, I hope everybody has a great night. I'm gonna go chill out, watch a little TV, and try to fall asleep. Love you all, Jem and Kate, you too, and all of yous, because I get it. I really do. And I know some people say it's patience of me. No, it's just I get it. I'm passionate about things too. And I don't blame you for being so. And we're going to probably argue about things, but it doesn't mean we have to hate each other. That's not what this is about. It's about trying to find the truth, and that's what it should be all about. So everybody wish Florida bass fishing a happy birthday. Today was his 56th birthday. So happy 56th birthday, Florida. He's going to kill me. I'm kidding. He ain't even close to 56, but I wanted to break his chops. Had to leave with a parting shot at him. My buddy Florida. And that's a real picture too. He's a fisherman, Joe. If you need to eat, he'll feed you. He'll catch anything out there. I don't know how he does it. Jonesy, happy 66th, Florida. Florida, you're up there, man. I tell you. His kids are older than me. Muck Boys, my man. I get a chance to finally look at the chat, and all my boys are here. All the good and ladies. You guys are great. All right, Florida. Oh, Ashton's now talking. Oh, Florida, you and Larry are saying, oh, now you got my fiance on your side, Florida. That's it. I'm out of here. I'm quitting. Taking my ball and going home. All right. Just making sure. Senior discount, Florida. And everybody, have a great night. Enjoy your week. We'll do this again Wednesday, unless something crazy comes up. But a regular time, Wednesday at 8 o'clock. And I'm going to continue on this. I know it's not Watson. I know I didn't get the 800 people, but that's not what it's about. It's about justice and cases and trying to figure it out. I'm not going to force content. If there's something that comes up with Watson I really need to discuss, we will definitely do it. Jem, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I really, really, really do. You have no idea how much I appreciate that. And I wish you a good night too. And I appreciate you. I don't know how many times I didn't see the chat, so I'll have to go watch the replay. But I promise you that my goal here with everyone in my mods is to keep everyone to be fair and not do that. So you can absolutely have your opinions, and sometimes we're going to disagree, but I appreciate you challenging me. And ultimately, maybe we just have to agree to disagree at the end. I don't know, because I don't really know yet or even if I'll have a final conclusion by the end, because let's face it, a lot of professionals that have been in this case for 7 years don't, it seems. So we'll get there, though. We'll get there. But I just want to do it in a fair way and be fair to both sides as much as I can. I'm human, though. But I do appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you being very respectful all night. I haven't seen anything that would warrant anything. So, and Kate also, she was great too. So we're gonna be all right, hopefully. And let's nail down a little further. Maybe we'll start off Wednesday with a couple videos of, we'll listen to the 911 call. I don't see much there, but we got to do it, I guess. And then we'll kind of dig into some of the reports, and let's look early, and we'll start, from the accounts of whether, we'll start with Whitley and Dillon's statements and see, where they differ, where they're the same. We'll get into some of the data too, and just kind of really hammer home here. But again, thank you all. Have a good night. If you need any help or anything tonight, reach out to Florida, private message him. He would be happy to help you. Muck Boys too. Reach out, give him a call. His phone number is 555. No, I'm teasing. All right, guys, I'm done. Love y'all. Be good. And don't take any wooden nickels.